thought we had to do something, and I talked to my wife.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning and welcome to Morning Glory. It's 3 minutes past 6. I'm Mike Graham with you until 10 o'clock in the morning. It is, of course, Thursday, the 18th of September. We are emblazoned on the front pages this morning with all manner of pictures of Donald Trump, Melania, King Charles, Camilla, Prince and Princess of Wales. It's all going on. If you're suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, you better look away now because it would appear that he's had a very nice time. One of the ridiculous lowlights of the whole shebang is on the front page of The Guardian. Carol Ann Duffy, the former poet laureate, has written a poem which I might read out to you because it's so awful and dreadful. Nothing like a poem that you would think would be any use at all. Front page of The Times has got We Are Kin and a picture, lovely picture of the King and Queen standing next to the President and the First Lady. Same picture on the front page of The Sun, the special bond. They talk about how the President hailed the UK at the Banquet, and then the band played a 007 theme, which is all rather nice. So lots and lots of coverage of that, which we'll talk about, of course. Reem Ibrahim is here. Very good morning to you, Reem.
Hi, good morning.
And lots of lovely pictures of the Princess of Wales at Windsor last night as well. It was a state dinner. There was lots of speeches, lots of fun was had. Keir Starmer looked like a fish out of water, of course, because he just does wherever he goes and wherever he stands, wearing a suit that didn't fit him. Lord Ali obviously has stopped funding him, I guess. I don't know, but he doesn't look like he's wearing. He's wearing somebody else's suit. There's a couple of other great stories to talk about as well. Front page of The Telegraph has got Home Office Charities Guide for Migrants to Avoid Deportation. Those of you who've been listening to me for a long time, many years, will know that it was years and years ago that I said that there are charities out there who are actively helping these migrants to not only get to this country, but when they get here, telling them how to stay here. And it turns out there is now an organisation which is in receipt of about £400,000 in comic relief donations and benefits from charitable tax relief, which is giving advice to immigrants on how to avoid deportation. It's an organisation called Bail for Immigration Detainees. It provides legal advice to thousands of people in detention across the UK, and it basically tells them exactly how they can avoid being kicked out of the country. And it's actually produced a migrant booklet so that they can all look at it and see what the best ways are to press the buttons. Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, says that migrants are making a mockery of Britain's laws as he promises to fight any last-minute appeals against the one-in, one-out policy, which has already proven to be a complete and utter disaster. We're in day 4 of the first week of one-in, one-out, and so far it's none out at all, because all of the people who have been earmarked for deportation have, of course, got themselves some lefty lawyers. And the front page of the Daily Mail says now the Home Secretary blasts lefty lawyers because she blames them for lodging last-minute legal challenges. Well, set up the system then so that they can't do it. It's as simple as that, really. Day 2 of Starmer's delicious humiliation on human rights is what they're calling it. The government's policy, one in, one out, is in disarray. Also, an incredible story this morning, which we're going to tell you about. The convicted rapist who raped a woman in Hyde Park, who was a migrant who came here illegal. It turns out not only was he an illegal migrant, but he was an Islamic terrorist convicted in Egypt, for heaven's sake. 0344 499 1000 is the number. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. And so, breathe, 6 minutes past 6. It's a rather strange morning this morning, Reem. I came out of the house thinking it's going to be cool and cold. It looks a bit wet and damp. You know, it came out, it's kind of warm. It feels like that sort of hurricane weather in Florida.
It does. It also feels quite humid as well.
That's what I mean, yeah.
It's quite moist.
Moist and heavy in the air.
Word.
Yeah, well, it's quite a descriptive word. I mean, but sometimes there is nothing else you can say. But so, I don't know if you were able to watch it all last night, the state visit. Great pageantry yesterday in Windsor. And, you know, of course, the thing that I found really funny was we were watching it here yesterday afternoon, and the BBC had to have a sort of cut-out corner of the protesters in London while they were showing what was going on in Windsor. And it's like, why are you doing that? It's a ragtag bunch of a few hundred people, hardly anybody at all. But they have to make the point that, you know, there are lots of people here that don't like Donald Trump.
There are people that are here that are against them, right? And they're against the state visit. I mean, that's the point. And there was also a couple of members of Parliament I saw that were talking about, you know, the disruption that are going to be caused as a result of the state visit. I mean, come on,
really,
get a
seriously.
grip. I mean, it's wonderful that Trump has visited the UK twice now since he's become president.
Totally.
It's a huge, huge earmark. I mean, look, there is so much that we can learn from the United States and what they've been up to. I was in DC last week, speaking to some of the think tanks out there, hearing about how they've been able to talk to the Trump administration and what they're up to over there. But it's hugely significant, and it's really, really important that we welcome President Trump and we welcome the Americans with open arms, because they seem to be getting a lot of things right, at least in comparison to the absolute mayhem that we're facing here. But it's also just
this government,
symbolism.
while you were away, the government has collapsed even further into the bin than it was before you went, you know?
It has. It was really bad. Sort of watching it from abroad, I'm like, oh God, what is going on? But it's really important that that special relationship is kept strong, and we're very lucky that Trump sort of loves the UK no matter what, you know, craziness is going on over in number 10, no matter who Keir Starmer is. I mean, basically, Keir Starmer could be a complete fish, and Trump would still say, oh, you're the Prime Minister of the UK, it's all good, we love you. So it's really, really great, and the royal family played such a special part in this, I think.
And he's also kind of risen above the kind of ridiculous, petty insults that have been thrown at him by various people, including Yvette Cooper, and a lot of people making fun of her spending 10 seconds like shaking his hand after, you know, slagging him off several times in the past. And then David Lammy, of course, doing the same thing. Even Starmer, we were playing clips yesterday saying, I don't like Donald Trump, I don't want him around for dinner, you know, I'm not a Trump fan, blah, blah, blah. But Trump doesn't care, because he is the most powerful man in the world.
Yeah, he can just rise above it.
There's something quite remarkable about an American president and the way that they travel around the world as well. I mean, I've seen several bits of footage of the motorcade kind of coming through various, like, small towns. There was one piece of film of it going through Walthamstow after we arrived at Stansted. It just looks amazing, you know, because there's about 35, you know, cars in the motorcade. It's ambulances and, you know, the thing with the nuclear device in it, rocket launchers, and people just looking at it going, wow, that is proper power, that is, you know.
It is, and it is. I mean, it has real policy implications. I mean, look, the sort of the way it feels and the way it acts, and the way that Trump has sort of been able to bring his mark to the UK and signal. I mean, there was, I think it was on the front page of the Sun, where he was quoted saying things like, you know, the UK and the US have done the best things for the rest of the world. They've done, you know, they've done so much good for the rest of the world, and he really does view the United Kingdom as part of that journey, part of that relationship.
Right.
And they've been negotiating this sort of deal around technology. Of course, digital services tax was a huge thing for the US, and they always said we weren't going to do a trade deal, free trade agreement with the UK unless we sorted that out, and we did one anyway. But of course, there's so much more room for improvement. And really, really crucially, the relationship with the US and the relationship we have with the US really matters for us in genuine terms, not just sort of how it looks and the frills and the nice dresses. It really matters in terms of the agreements and the trade agreements that we're able to get with the United States and what impact that actually has on us as an economy. So it's really, really great to see this and see the fact that the royal family, I think, have played such a huge part in this. I mean, we were talking about this outside.
That's what they call the soft power, isn't it? That's what they call it.
It is soft power, but none of them were in proper white tie. That was I was
Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, Trump, you know, he could have done better with his outfit.
What's he not wearing then? He's wearing a white. He appears to be wearing a white waistcoat with a white tie. And Charles is wearing the same, isn't he?
I don't think I think some of it isn't correct, although I might be wrong.
Oh, okay.
But it's but
he's wearing a black sort of morning coat.
Yes.
And black trousers and then a white tie and a white shirt, which I thought that's
is that correct?
White, so.
I thought one of them
no.
didn't have it correct. But I think they all look very lovely.
They do. It's some great pictures, and the front page of the Guardian, funnily enough, has got Prime Minister banking on £150 billion of investment to placate the critics of the Trump visit. I don't think we need to placate the critics of the Trump visit, you know, because nobody cares what they think.
No, and they're such a minority. I mean, also, a lot of polling does suggest that, you know, Trump was really unpopular in the UK, Trump 1.0, right? When he was first came in 2016.
But he wasn't really unpopular. He was unpopular with a certain group of people who hate anybody who's got money.
But now he's extremely popular.
Yeah.
Like, the people in Britain are much more favourable towards Trump than they were in this previous administration. But also, I think he's taken more seriously now than he was in 2016.
And let's have a look at the pictures of the demo, right? Here's one of the signs being held up. No to Zionism, stop US and Israeli terrorism, no to fascists, dump Musk and Farage, and then there's a load of Palestinian flags being waved. It's not exactly anti-American, is it? It's just like pro all of the crap that they come out with all the time, you know?
Yeah, and it is the sort of socialist sort of cohesion where they've got pro-trans stuff, pro-Palestine stuff, anti-capitalist. It's just insane. I don't really know where any of these things come together, but they seem to.
And nobody cares what these people think, you know?
No, they are a minority. But it's interesting that, you know, as you said, the BBC highlight the protesters more than any other news channel. And part of it is we have to show and prove that there are some people that are against his state visit. How can you be against? You can be against Trump, you know, criticise Trump as president, but how can you be against the president of the United States visiting the United Kingdom?
Right.
Like, that is it's just insane. Waste of time.
But most
Clearly,
of these people are
have
probably
jobs.
anti-monarchy as well. They probably want to get rid of the monarchy. They are, as you say...
But they are a minority. I mean, the monarchy...
They're a tiny minority.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even worth us talking about them. Let's have a look at some clips. Trump talking last night about the special relationship.
The British Empire laid the foundations of law, liberty, free speech, and individual rights virtually everywhere the Union Jack has ever flown, including a place called America. You know that place very well, don't you? His Majesty spoke eloquently about the bond which inspired Sir Winston Churchill, and the bust is in the Oval Office right now, the beautiful bust of Winston Churchill, to coin the phrase special relationship. But seen from American eyes, the word special does not begin to do it justice. We're joined by history and fate, and by love and language, and by transcendent ties of culture, tradition, ancestry.
I mean, you can't disagree with any of that. I mean, I can't remember the last time I heard the phrase British Empire, to be honest. People don't say that much anymore, do they?
love...
Oh, wow, it's the British Empire.
Oh, God, we can't talk about that, can we? It's bad. It's so funny. You can't ever talk about the fact that the British Empire did also do some good.
Yeah.
I come from North Africa originally, and, you know, undoubtedly, in Egypt at least, the British Empire and the sort of the empire as a whole, but also just British culture had a hugely positive impact on the country.
Sure.
It's interesting, I think, when Trump said the stuff about individual rights and individual liberty, which is something that really, really matters to me, and I think it really matters to a lot of people in this country. And the Americans have a constitution that even prevents Trump from being able
Yeah.
to violate those individual rights.
Yeah.
And I have become more and more convinced day in, day out that we need a constitution.
Yeah.
We need
well, you know, I
something
was
that
watching
protects our
Harry Cole
rights.
yesterday, because Harry Cole, who's now based in America as the
Yeah.
Sun's editor-at-large, he was on with Fox and Friends talking to 3 people on the sort of panel there about the arrest of Graham Linehan and of course all the other kind of hate speech things that are going on, and they were literally aghast. They were going, what? You know, somebody's been arrested, a woman was put in jail for a tweet, and they're kind of they can't believe it. And I lived in America for 10 years, and you really do have free speech there. There are things, there's barely nothing that you can't say, you know, because they're really, really fierce about protecting it. And we have to be really careful, I think.
But even when certain governments and certain politicians try and violate that, the Constitution protects it. I mean, Trump signed an executive order saying if you burn an American flag, you'll go to prison for a year.
Yeah.
It won't ever happen because it has happened in the past where Texas tried to do this. Somebody went to prison for it or was fined for it, I believe. And then it went to the Supreme Court and they said, no, there's a violation of their freedom of expression.
Right.
You know, you're allowed to burn the American flag and that is your God-given individual right.
Absolutely.
And we just do not have that in the UK.
Yeah.
We need a constitutional right to freedom of expression. And I think that it's really important because even Trump, who is yesterday discussed how important it is that individual rights are protected. Even he, probably for political reasons, has tried to violate that, probably knowing that it won't ever go through the courts, right? They're a really good example of a Supreme Court that is actually grounded in constitutional rights. And a lot of those ideas came from this country.
Of course they did.
The Enlightenment, the idea that...
But we've become less enlightened rather than more enlightened over the years. You know, I used to say this years ago on an overnight show that, you know, we're sort of evolving in reverse. You know, we're getting stupider. Having a look at some more Trump, though. Here he is talking about the special bond.
The bond of kinship and identity between America and the United Kingdom is priceless and eternal. It's irreplaceable and unbreakable, and we are, as a country, as you know, doing unbelievably well. We had a very sick country 1 year ago, and today, I believe we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. In fact, nobody's even questioning it, but we owe so much of that to you and the footing that you gave us when we started. Together, we've done more good for humanity than any 2 countries in all of history. Together, we must defend the exceptional heritage that makes us who we are, and we must continue to stand for the values and the people of the English-speaking world, and we do indeed stand for that. On behalf of all Americans, I offer a toast to one of the great friendships, to 2 great countries, and to His Majesty, King Charles III, a very, very special man, and also a very, very special queen. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be with you.
I mean, you know, how can you not like that?
It is so interesting, isn't it? He's got a much softer tone when he speaks to the British audience, doesn't he? He speaks a lot slower and a lot calmer and with a lot more clarity. Whereas
I think also he genuinely was kind of a bit overwhelmed by all of that yesterday, because you would be. I mean, basically they're putting on a private party for him inside a castle. And somebody said to me yesterday that Windsor Castle is in fact the largest and oldest occupied castle in the world.
Is that right?
Apparently so. And the fact that it's still actually used, you know, people actually live in it, you know. And watching all the sort of military, you know, parades going on, the red arrows, and some of the tweets that the Americans were putting out. There's a guy called Dan Bongino, I think his name is. He's with the White House administration, and he was putting out just one tweet after another, just completely bowled over, you know, and the red arrows go over the red, white, and blue, and just the scene of a castle, because Americans love all that.
It does show, actually, even in the face of adversity in the United Kingdom, really what matters is our tradition. And no matter how far gone this country goes, we've got a beautiful history.
Of course.
We've got so much evidence of when we were once great. And I think that when we're looking at the tradition that we currently have and how we're able to welcome the President of the United States, that is so unique and
it's
so
what our
special.
strength is, isn't it? I think that's right. Let's see what he had to say about Prince William.
I'll tell you that I just stood in line and shook about 150 hands, and the king knew every single person and every single company, and some of them had bad names like XYZ-Q3, and he knew every one of them, or at least I think he did, because nobody was complaining. I was very impressed with that. But I just want to say that His Majesty has also raised a remarkable son in His Royal Highness Prince of Wales. Really amazing. We've gotten to know you, and I think you're going to have an unbelievable success in future.
Just the one fantastic son. People are saying it's a bit of a swipe at Harry, who he's not very fond of.
It definitely is a swipe at Harry. Yeah. He very clearly emphasised the word son and did not say sons. Right. He very clearly wanted to make the point that he was talking about one singular son, and that is Prince William.
Yeah. Amazing.
That is it.
And Prince William, actually, and the Princess of Wales, both look, they're both obviously front and centre of a lot of the pictures in the papers today as well. And a lot of people saying she looked fantastic, and they you know, he's beginning to emerge as a you know, a man who will be king, perhaps in the not too distant future.
I think they both looked really beautiful, really, really wonderful. I mean, I loved her dress. I thought that she looked fantastic.
And again, that's another thing that sort of will flash around the world, and people will see those pictures and go, wow, maybe we should go to Britain and see, you know,
that is the definition.
Pay some money for the tourism.
It's the definition of soft power. Yeah. Again, like, no matter how far gone the UK goes. By the way, the UK is poorer than every single state in the US. Like, even Mississippi, which is the poorest state in the US, we're poorer. And yet, Trump is visiting the United Kingdom and so excited to be here, so happy to see the tradition and the frills and the wonderfulness that we see from the royal family. And I think it really does show that that is what tradition is. And you know, no matter how far gone the UK goes, we've got so much to offer. So much to offer.
Exactly right. Absolutely. Let's have a look at what Keir Starmer tweeted out. He did look like a fish out of water, I have to say. Check.
Vibes.
I mean, it's getting worse, the music, isn't it? I mean, it started off a few months ago with this kind of soft porn backing music. You know, so it's now gone into some kind of weird, you know, like kind of police action series. You know, as they chase down the burglar. It's just he keeps
I find it astonishing. Well, I find
also,
it astonishing.
can you explain why he stands the way he stands? There's one picture of him standing, and he's got his arms sort of down by his sides, and he just looks like he's been taken hostage.
You know what it is?
This look on his face.
They get media trained to do this power stance, and they all do it wrong. They all sort of they look a little bit like they're scared, and like they've been taken hostage. What I find astonishing about that video is the stuff about driving economic growth. Immediately after the month of July, in which we have had zero growth. Zero growth in the UK. The Americans, they've had more than 3.5% in economic growth over the second quarter of this year. And in the UK, we have had zero.
There he
so
is.
He is a liar.
That's the picture. Look, what's he doing with his hands?
Yeah, he looks scary.
He looks as though he's actually got fake arms. They're literally, you know, he's stuck them up the inside of the jacket, and his real arms are inside somewhere doing something else.
You know, Toy Story? Yeah. When the sort of different characters are like, when a human being comes in and they just go...
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It is a bit like that. And then he's got these kind of baggy trousers on, and he's supposed to have all these beautiful suits provided to him by Lord Ali. Maybe those have run out, and he's gone up a size or something. But he just looks so awkward.
He looks scared. It is his hands, isn't it?
Yeah, because his hands are kind of like fists. They're not open. They're sort of half closed.
It maybe would have been better if his hands were behind his back and he sort of looked a bit more...
Well, that's why if you look at Camilla, she's, you know, in the royal family, and Charles puts his behind his back, and she puts hers in front, you know? I mean, Trump's also standing with his hands by his sides as well.
But he looks more confident.
But he looks more confident, yeah. Starmer just looks like he doesn't even be there. Very, very strange. Anyway, of course, one of the things that this is for Alan in Merseyside, says the banquet wasn't the same without Ed Davey. How we missed him, because of course he was invited in the case of Nigel Farage was not invited.
Yes, I was going to say.
But we had him on yesterday, and he was like, "Yeah, I saw him quite recently. I'm not going to see him this time because I've been banned from the banquet." But here's what Ed Davey put out on not attending the state dinner.
I thought we had to do something, and I talked to my wife about it. I actually prayed, and I thought, this is one thing, it's a small thing that I can do. I'm not saying the Prime Minister shouldn't go to the state banquet. What I am saying is I hope he, by listening to people like me and many others, raises these issues in the firmest, strongest way possible. I don't think I'll be missed at the state banquet, but I hope by taking this action, people will debate the reality that President Trump should act. We should, as a British people, as a British government, tell him to stop it.
What a joke of a man.
So, seriously, I mean, he actually thinks anybody cares whether he goes to a state banquet, you know? I want people to think about it. Well, people don't care about it, David. The first thing that he said, actually, which has been true there, was he said, I don't think I'll be missed.
Yes.
Very true. Correct.
Suddenly he has some self-awareness.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, the absolute self-importance and arrogance of the man to think that anybody gives a flying whatever about whether or not he turns up at the banquet. Nobody cares. Nobody actually remembered him being there. I mean, most people were asking where Farage was because he's actually friends with President Trump. Nobody cared that Ed Davey wasn't there. The fact that he thinks, you know what really annoys me, Mike, is the fact that he said, I am taking this action. This action? You just didn't show up to a dinner. What do you mean action?
I know. It's mad, isn't it? Completely mad. It's coming up to 25 minutes past 6. We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to quiz you on the menu later to see how much of it you would know, because I think most people would go, I don't have a clue what that is. But luckily, the Daily Mail's given us a few kind of translations. But you might speak French, I don't know, do you?
I do not speak French.
OK. You're not from that part of North Africa, then?
No. Well, my mum can speak French.
OK. Well, unfortunately, she's not doing the paper review. So, and also, we want to give you... I'm going to read you this poem on the front page of the Guardian. It's hilarious. Caroline Duffy, former poet laureate. She's written a new poem to mark Trump's state. It's like one of those socialists, you know. Here is a poem what I have written, and I will read it to you very shortly, coming up after the next break. See you soon.
Little birdie tells me that number 10 have been trying to keep quite a tight lid on the number of questions that will be asked.
Funny that.
Donald Trump, you know, he's a pretty freewheeling guy, but he is also the guest here. Normally, when he hosts these sort of press conferences on his home turf in the Oval Office or in the East Wing of the White House, he takes a lot of questions, and he doesn't have a sort of pre-selected list like Starmer likes to have of, you know, he knows what's coming, and he's much more of a free for all.
Yeah.
I suspect they're going to meet somewhere in the middle there.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory at 6:29, very nearly. Remy Ibrahim is here. Peter in Croydon says, morning, Mike, just for comedy purposes, I watched Sky News for the Trump visit, and they were so desperate to see things go wrong to slag off Trump. They tried to slag him off when he walked in front of the King to inspect the garden. It was the King who ushered Trump forward. Not even a positive word on the beauty and elegance of Melania, juvenile and shameful. Yeah, there is this kind of a disease that seems to take over the media in this country whenever they see Donald Trump, and they have to kind of somehow find something wrong.
They do.
Which
and
yesterday was really hard to do.
The BBC was a really good example of it, where they just had to show the protesters, because they just had to show, look, there are some people that are against the state visit. And as you said, like, these are like 5 people that actually care, that have no jobs and clearly have nothing better to do. They don't have kids to put to bed, do they?
The Blue Hair Brigade.
Oh, God, it's
waving
the blue...
Palestinian flags. I mean, who gives a monkey's what they think?
Honestly.
But I'm going to run through the menu with you, right? Starter, panna cotta de cresson et œufs de cale sur sable de parmesan. Any ideas?
Well, I know what panna cotta is.
Right.
I know what parmesan is, but that's about it.
OK. Hampshire watercress panna cotta with parmesan shortbread and quail egg salad. I guess œufs de quail is quail eggs. Main course, ballotine de poulet fermier en robe de courgette.
I know what the last word is. I know what a courgette is.
Well, you know poulet, right? That's chicken. Organic Norfolk chicken, ballotine, I don't know what that is, wrapped in courgettes with a thyme and savoury infused juice.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
That actually does sound quite nice. Better than the rubber chicken that we usually get on these days.
No, and it's not chlorinated, though, is it?
Probably not. Maybe they would have done it just for old time's sake. But a dessert, a bombe glacée cardinal, which is a vanilla ice cream bomb with Kentish raspberry sorbet interior and lightly poached Victoria plums.
Oh, that sounds gorgeous.
That does sound nice.
I love a plum. Do you love a plum?
I do like a plum, yeah. There's lots you can do with them as well. Sliver-bits you can make from plums as well,
gorgeous.
which is really good. The wine list included a Wiston Estate Cuvée from 2016, a Domaine Bonneau du Patray Coton Charlemagne Grand Cru 2018, a Ridge Vineyards Montebello, and a Paul Roger, which is the champagne of the Royals, of course, extra Cuvée de Reserve 1998. And then after dinner, they were served vintage port, champagne cognac, and Bowmore whiskey.
That's amazing.
The island of Islay.
Oh my God, that's gorgeous. What a lovely menu.
Great. I know, it's not bad, is it? And of course, now I'm going to read this out to you because it's got to be done. This is Carol Ann Duffy, and it's called State/Banquet. How it glitters and shines, the grand service, among the rocks and the rubble, laid out on a breeze block horseshoe table, 6 crystal glasses per setting. It took 8 servants 3 weeks to polish, silver coated in a thin layer of gold. Even the concrete dust in the air seems glamorised, and the ruins are decked in the uplifting flags of democracy. I mean, it's not really even a poem, is it?
That's not. That's awful. Also, Carol Ann Duffy, just to be clear, is not just some random poet. I mean, you know, she's a Nobel laureate.
She was the poet laureate, yeah.
Is like on every GCSE syllabus. Every child in the United Kingdom will have studied Carol Ann Duffy. And Carol Ann Duffy, sorry. But she is so interesting, I think, as a poet, because everything, I mean, basically all of it, this is my big problem with English literature in the UK, is that it's always some kind of anti-capitalist, anti-government, kind of anti-establishment poem.
Because it has to be. Because the establishment is now anti-establishment. No, because the establishment is now left-wing. I'm not going to bore you with the whole lot of it, but the final part is, let the trumpets sound on the bomb site as the great and the good pick their way through and a famished child peers through a bullet hole in the wall.
Basically, it's a reference to Gaza, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. But where's the bullet hole in the wall at Windsor Castle?
No, there isn't one. But also, there aren't children starving in the UK.
They really aren't.
We can be honest about.
There's plenty of fat children.
There are lots of fat children. Yeah. We can be honest about, you know, the impact of the lack of economic growth and how socialism has decimated the UK over the last 14 years. But there isn't a child starving in the UK, and it's ironic. I think it's absolutely insane that Gaza is always the thing that people talk about, and it's awful. What's happening is awful, don't get me wrong, but nobody talks about Sudan or the Uyghur Muslims in China or Yemen. I mean, there is conflict and war everywhere, and Gaza is the trendy one to talk about.
And as everybody says, who is on the side of the Israelis, basically, or on the side of humanity, release the hostages and then it all ends, right? That's what Israel say, and you know, but I don't really get into that. Let's talk about a couple of the other stories on the front pages as well, because this one on the front of the Telegraph, Home Office Charities Guide for Migrants to Avoid Deportation. I've been saying this for years, that there are so many of these charities. This is just one, which is called Bail for Immigration Detainees. Just one, but there are dozens of them. that get public money that people donate for things like comic relief, also get money from government departments, and they're literally there to assist people to come to this country illegally and to stay here.
Yeah, so £400,000 in comic relief donations, and this particular charity, of course, gives legal advice to those that have that are claiming asylum, and they are literally actively trying to thwart the one-in, one-out scheme. Now, whatever you think about the one-in, one-out scheme, I mean, I don't think it goes far enough.
But it doesn't work.
It doesn't. Okay, it doesn't work. I mean, it hasn't worked.
Right.
But the fact that this charity is trying to use what we call this is lawfare. They're using the law in order to actively act against government policy.
Yeah.
So the question is, why hasn't this government or the last government been able to actually reduce illegal migration?
Yeah.
It's because of charities like this.
But who are funded by government departments. It's insane.
But this is the case with a lot of charities. I mean, I don't think people realise this. The public fund so much. We have no idea about, because it's different grants that go in different places. You know, I was talking about this the other day, Action Smoking Health, a charity that talks about the importance of quitting smoking. They were the main people that were lobbying. They basically, the government take taxpayer money, fund these organisations to lobby themselves. Right? And this is what's happened here, where these particular individuals, these asylum seekers, are being given legal advice on how to effectively thwart these government policies.
Well, it's worse than that. They get a 12-page document which encouraged those migrants who've been told by the Home Office to be sent back to France to act quickly, to get a lawyer, and to consider any High Court action to fight their removal. It also provides 3 cut-and-paste letters which include a method of listing reasons they could be bailed and avoid deportation. So when all these people come out and go, oh, I can't go back to France, the Eritrean the other day, because I'll be destitute, that'll probably be in this booklet. You know, an Albanian guy who didn't get sent home because of his Portuguese wife who lived in Britain and didn't want to go to Albania. He said, well, I can't leave my wife. Another reason to stay. All of these reasons will be in this bloody booklet.
Yeah, and it includes template letters that they can use, and it gives them suggestions on how to use the legal and human rights arguments to fight their deportation. What's really fascinating about this is that, of course, there was lots of criticism of the Conservative government for not being able to do, and people were saying, look, I mean, the legal aspects to this are insane. We just got to leave the ECHR, and this is proof that, even if there is will within government, and I do think that they wanted to actually make this scheme work, right? Even so, there are so many different organisations and charities that are acting against them.
Which the government have helped to set up. That's the whole thing. And I mean, I don't mean this government, but lots of governments, including the last one. But it says here they've also got each template that they've got in this booklet, and it provides a checkbox of 5 possible grounds that could help them remain in the UK, including claiming that they've suffered torture or inhuman treatment, been trafficked, or have mental or physical health problems, or have family in the UK. These are all the reasons that these people use. But and the judges fall for them every time. I mean,
it's not that the judges fall for them. The judges don't want them to go in the first place. The judges don't fall for anything. They want these people to stay. Like, this is the problem, right? When you've got
they should bloody well put them up in their houses then. That's what they should do.
If you're pro open borders migration and you want the people that have come to the UK illegally to stay, then why don't you put them up?
Exactly. Because here's an example of why this whole business of illegal migrants is wrong. There's a guy who was sent to prison this week because he was found guilty of raping a woman in Hyde Park. His name is Abdul Rahman Adnan Abu Layla. He's 42 years old, and he's from Egypt, right? And so he came to this country illegally, I think 2022 or 23, and he was living in a hotel in Ealing when he committed this particular crime. He's got a wife and son who live in Turkey, right? Turns out, according to the Daily Mail, that not only is he an illegal asylum seeker, he's also a convicted Islamic terrorist.
The Egyptians didn't want him.
And the reason he left Egypt was because he was found guilty there in his absence of being part of a bomb-making cell and given a 7-year jail sentence. And these are the people that we're allowing into the country.
Really?
Yeah. He was found guilty and given a 7-year jail sentence in May the 5th, 2015. He and 6 other men were said to have manufactured explosives. He's part of the Muslim Brotherhood, right? And he obviously left Egypt, went to Turkey.
This is insane.
And then came to Britain, and we let him in.
Yeah. And they probably claimed asylum based on his human rights being violated.
No, he said that he couldn't. He said he couldn't go back to Egypt.
Yeah, because you're a terrorist.
Right.
Because you are a convicted terrorist.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! I actually cannot believe what is going on in this country, and the fact that there are active charities, active judicial actors that are saying, you know what, we want these people to stay. It's just outright disgusting.
It is.
I just, you know, because this is the problem. I am still very pro-migration when those people come to the UK and work. They are coming to the UK illegally in order to work.
As long as they're not Islamic terrorists.
No, and this exactly is the problem. People just say, you know what, I'm done. I don't want anyone to come anymore.
Yeah.
And it's these particular cases that radicalise everybody. And look, I've been radicalised. I cannot believe what has happened in the United Kingdom. I cannot believe what has happened to this great country, and the fact that we are opening our arms to Islamic terrorists who, you know, the country that I come from, Egypt, don't even want in the first place, and they've tried to convict him, and he's gone off and the UK has accepted him.
Right.
I mean, this is just astonishing.
And now he's in prison because he's been found guilty, and who knows how many other women he raped before he was actually caught for this one. Absolutely extraordinary. Front page of the Times, you've got Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, says that she's begun a review of modern slavery laws after blaming vexatious last-minute claims. I mean, all of this happens. I mean, how many times have I sat here, and you've sat here probably as well, looking at what the Home Secretary, the new Home Secretary, is going to do, and every single time there's a sort of churn of a Home Secretary, they all go, oh, we must look at these new slavery laws because they seem to be damaging. It's like, you know, what's the Home Office doing? How are they not doing anything for the last 20 years? They've done nothing. The square root, sweet FA, and there's more and more people coming here than ever.
Human slavery laws are used for so much. I mean, I don't know if you're even allowed to talk about it, but when I was 18, I did jury service. And it was using human slavery laws, and it wasn't slavery, right? It was the case was very different. It was effectively drug trafficking, but it wasn't what you could constitute as slavery. So I do think that there is the legal aspect to it. I'm not a lawyer, but I do think that basically one of the biggest problems in the United Kingdom is that we have really, really bad laws. Really bad laws that are vague, that are not well thought out, that can be used for nefarious
and we've got a bunch of, and so you must codify the law, make the law tighter, make it less easy for these lefty lawyers to actually exploit it. But we've got to take another break because we are getting late. I think the menu sounded terrible, says Celia. My body shuddered at the thought of the amount of sugar, salt and cream saturating the food.
Celia.
Mind you, I do eat chocolate bars. I mean, come on, Celia. You know, once in a while, if you got to be invited to a state banquet, what would you expect? You'd expect all that fancy stuff, wouldn't you? Anyway, 6:41, back after this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 6:43. Time is flying. We're here till 10 o'clock, of course. Let's get a voice note from John.
Hi, Mike. It's John in Vietnam here. Well, the Brits can certainly put on a great show of pageantry. What a great spectacle that was. On the banquet, I hear a lot of the Labour personnel were all sitting next to large companies such as BlackRock, etc. That for me is very worrying. They don't seem to be interested in the small businessman, small businesswoman. They want to cozy up to these big conglomerates. Great show, by the way.
John, thank you very much. John from Vietnam. People are listening far and wide to this show. Here's one from Sonia, who says, "Hi, Mike. I've got a poem which is much better than that Duffy guff. Trump gives lefties the hump as they shiver by the eco heat pump. Trump gives our economy a bump and avoids London because it's such a dump. Trump, please give Starmer a thump because he really is a chump." That's really good. Have a great day. Well done, Sonia. Thank you very much indeed.
Was that ChatGPT'd?
I don't know. But it's not bad, is it?
No,
I'm not one of those that can tell whether something's been ChatGPT. It's not something I use, really. But certainly, ChatGPT would be better than anything that ridiculous poem in the front of The Guardian would be. But here's a good one. I like this on page 10. There is some kind of business summit going on today. And one of the guys who's going to be there is the world's biggest AI boss, right? This guy called Jensen Huang, boss of chip giant NVIDIA. He basically said to Ed Miliband, OK, you're going to build these new big data centres, but you're going to need to have some gas-fired power stations to make sure you've got enough power. Because I said this yesterday, you know, when they want to open all these data centres, they drain power so much out of the grid and they drain all the water from the sort of surrounding area that you actually need far more and more sort of cogent and robust energy
because
supply.
The price will come up. I mean, you're absolutely right, Mike. It's basic supply and demand.
Yeah.
If you want prices to come down, you need to increase supply. And the fact that Ed Miliband has absolutely wreaked havoc over the energy market, you know, you're absolutely right. I mean, and the boss of NVIDIA is absolutely right. We need to ensure that we have a stable supply of energy, and unfortunately, we do not have the capacity to make all of that renewable.
No.
So we have to ensure that we are.
And also, it's not reliable enough.
No, it is not reliable enough. We need to issue new oil and gas licenses. We need to use the resources that we currently have. And look, I believe that the market will end up allowing us to find new renewable energies. I think nuclear energy is the future. And I think all of these, what's bizarre is the Green Party and the eco-activists that are against nuclear energy, which is the safest and most renewable, but best for the environment energy source that we've currently discovered. So we need to ensure we're doing that. I mean, France have managed to build nuclear reactors. Why can't we?
No. And now we're suddenly announcing that we're going to do deals with Americans to build these small base nuclear reactors. But I mean, how long is that going to take? You know, thanks to Nick Clegg, we didn't build any in 2010 because he said because it will take 10 years. We don't want to do that.
Look what happened 10 years later.
And yeah, exactly right. So that's one story that's quite funny. The other one I wanted to pick up on, and we did a bit on this yesterday because the inflation figures came out and said that inflation was stuck at 3.8% for August. But actually, it's now saying, as I suspected, that there's a much bigger rise in the cost of food and non-alcoholic drinks. It's got up to 5.1%, which is the biggest high, I think, for 2 years. It
is. So it's gone up since August, so it's gone up since the summer. Inflation is extraordinarily high, and it's sort of stayed that way for quite a while now. It's stubbornly high. The problem is, inflation is always what we would call a monetary phenomenon. So it's basically too much money in the economy chasing too few goods. And at the moment, in the month of July, we saw 0% growth. So when the economy isn't growing and things are getting more and more expensive, the cost of living is higher. That means your weekly food shop is more expensive. And it's actively as a direct result of government policy. We're looking at, page 12 of The Sun has quite a good little breakdown of this, where the price rises in a year as food inflation was 5.1%. But when you're looking specifically at things like beef, 24.9% increase, butter, 18.9% increase, chocolate, 15.4% increase. Celia won't be very happy. 15.4% on coffee and 12.6% on milk. But when you compare it to other countries, inflation in France was 0.8%.
But what I don't understand is when it says that food inflation, as a general rule, is at 5.1, all of those things are much higher than that. So beef, 24.9, butter, 18.9, chocolate, 15.4, coffee, 15.4. How do you get to 5.1?
Well, it's the aggregate of also the other elements of food, but what they're highlighting here is what's driving that higher level. So obviously, inflation overall, the overall inflation rate is 3.8%. When you're just looking at food and non-alcoholic beverages, it's 5.1%. But when you're looking specifically at those particular products, that is what's driving it forward. The problem with this, though, Mike, is these are all things that people on an everyday basis will be consuming.
Yeah,
milk, coffee, butter, beef, chocolate. These are all everyday goods.
Well, I did an online shop, funnily enough, yesterday, right? And noticed, because you just sort of click this, and there's some minced beef that I get, 5% fat, very good for Waitrose. It used to be about $4.99. It's now $7.50.
Yeah.
$7.50.
But to understand why is your food shop more expensive now? You know, when the government have overregulated the economy as a whole to extreme lengths. I mean, every single day Parliament are passing new regulations that make it more difficult to do business.
Right.
The tax burden is at its highest since the Second World War. This exact page on the side as well have also showed that the tax burden is predicted to be about 38% of GDP. So it's already higher than the 1970s, and it's about to get even higher. What does that mean? That means that the government is getting even bigger. The non-productive part of the economy, you know, not the private sector, people are working hard. We're talking about the public sector is getting even bigger. And that means that it's even more difficult to see economic growth. So that means that whilst your food shop is getting more expensive, your wages aren't growing at a fast rate. You are not seeing job opportunities, employment opportunities. You are not seeing those particular opportunities for your wages to increase. And so you are, in real terms, worse off. Yeah,
there's a piece in the paper today that says that your average family is actually, I think, from 10 years ago, something like £20,000 a year worse off than they were then. Let's get a voice note from Liam.
Morning, Mike. Liam from Kent. Just like to thank Starmer for the fact that I got a lovely letter yesterday. I don't want to name my company, but we're all being made redundant thanks to his national insurance hike. So just like to congratulate Keir Starmer on another fantastic decision, as per usual. Anyway, have a great show, Mike. Cheers.
Leo, I'm sorry to hear that. And that's the human cost of what these bozos in Parliament do. You know, Rachel Reeves wanders around talking about, you know, fixing the foundations and all of that nonsense. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening.
Liam, I'm so sorry that this has happened to you. And, you know, you're one example of this happening across the rest of the country. And
143,000 people fewer on the working jobs list now.
And the problem is that these are hard-working people that are unfortunately bearing the brunt of what is just really, really bad government economic policy. It's obvious, right? When you make the cost of employing somebody more expensive, it's harder to employ somebody. So, you know, Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer can say we've not increased tax on working people, but this is the difference between the impact of tax and the incidence of tax. But they're saying, look, we're taxing employers, but we're making it significantly more expensive to employ an individual person. Therefore, a lot of businesses cannot afford to employ the same amount of people. I was talking to a business owner
so they're going to lay people off
the other day, and they were saying, you know, the cost of my employment bill, you know, the cost of staff hasn't changed, but I've had to sack about half the staff. Because when you increase employers' national insurance contributions, you are making it more expensive to employ people. And therefore, surprise, surprise, the result is there are less people in employment.
And every single lever that they've pulled economically has worked out like that, and it's been a worse result for the economy and a worse result for them anyway. But we've got to take one more break. 6:51, we'll be back after this.
Birdie tells me that number 10 have been trying to keep quite a tight lid on the number of questions that will be asked.
Funny that.
Donald Trump, he's a pretty freewheeling guy, but he is also the guest here. Normally, when he hosts these sort of press conferences on his home turf in the Oval Office or in the East Wing of the White House, he takes a lot of questions, and he doesn't have a sort of pre-selected list like Starmer likes to have of he knows what's coming, and he's much more of a free for all.
Yeah.
I suspect they're going to meet somewhere in the middle there.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:55. We are here, of course, until 10 o'clock, and we are here with Reem Ibrahim. Diane from Wiltshire says, "Morning, Mike. What I saw from the Banquet was very eloquent American visitors who clearly appreciated our effort, and the last time I ate that, was at a Burney Inn for a steak dinner." Really? Are you sure? And Dave in Melton Mowbray says, "Morning, Mike. You're on about AI data banks being built in the UK. Wouldn't it be ironic if they had to power them by diesel generators? Ha ha. Yeah, they probably will, won't they? That'll be the problem." Quick voice note from Lash.
Hello, Mike. Lash from Cambridge. I just wondered about this banquet. Why was the menu in French? It was advertising Norfolk chicken and Wiltshire blackberries, but it was all in French. Sacre bleu.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I guess when you go to a posh dinner like that, it's like if you go to the Manoir de Quatre Saisons for dinner, everything's in French. And I guess it's a bit of a snobby foodie thing, isn't it? It
is a snobby foodie thing. Also, the wines are all French, right? But yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, Norfolk chicken and Wiltshire blueberries.
They could have gone the other way and had the wines from England, because there's some fantastic wines now from Sussex and Kent.
Have you had good English wine?
Oh yeah. Totally,
really?
yeah, absolutely. There's some fantastic stuff. And in fact, I think, if I'm not mistaken, for one of William's celebrations, or one of even Harry's weddings or something, there was the official sort of champagne was from England.
Well, it's not really champagne then, is it? If it's not from champagne.
you know, there's such a thing as Sussex, which is now called, which is a type of champagne. You can't call it champagne because it's not from the Champagne region, but it is effectively champagne.
Yeah.
But the official name of it is now Sussex.
Okay, that's cool.
You know.
But it's not champagne. You can't call it champagne if it's from Champagne.
No, it's not.
I tell you what this is.
But what I'm saying is that if they'd wanted to promote British, business and British
vineyards... They could have done. They could have had Sussex.
They could have done. An awful lot of French vineyards are also buying vineyards in England.
Is that right?
Yeah, because...
Is it because our climate's getting warmer? The climate's
getting slightly warmer, yeah, exactly.
That's really interesting. I've got to say,
Chapel Down in Kent is a very well-known one.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got to go make a trip. Yeah, I've got to go explore.
Yeah.
Forget about the wineries in the south of France. You've got to go over to Sussex.
Absolutely right. It's a lot cheaper as well. You don't have to spend so much time over there. But lots of other stories to talk about. We've done the food inflation. Jaguar Land Rover. This is a good one. On page 10 of the Daily Mail, Jaguar Land Rover have been completely kiboshed by this, hack that happened, and they've actually pretty much stopped making cars. In addition to ruining their own reputation by cancelling the design of the car, and by trying to create these new kind of electric cars and losing all of their sales in America, they're now saying they probably won't be able to actually manufacture any cars for until about November time.
Yeah, it's insane. I think part of it is obviously the regulations. I mean, it's interesting because of the US and UK trade deal.
Yeah.
The fact that we've been able to now export cars, automobiles over to the United States. But, the quota is about 100,000. I would like to see us get rid of that, which is part of why the US and UK relationship is just so incredibly important. But it is, I mean, it's really sad that British companies are really suffering at the moment. And I can imagine that part of it is the regulations around net zero and the impact of energy costs. I was thinking about this the other day because I was in the US last week with petrol costs. Petrol is really expensive overall, but in the United States it is the most expensive in California because of all of their horrible green levies. And yet in the United Kingdom it's still more expensive than California.
Well, I mean, American gas prices, they call them, used to be so cheap. I mean, but even now, I mean, I can fill up my sister's car for about $35, $40, which in Britain would cost about 80 quid. So it's literally half the price. But listen, we're out of time, Reem. I'm going to have to say cheerio. Thank you very much for popping in.
Thank you for having me, Mike.
Enjoy the rest of the day. I don't know what it's going to be doing. I don't know what the weather's going to be doing. But coming up in the next hour, we're going to talk to James Price, former government advisor, of course, who knows a thing or two about America. Also, Alexander Larman is going to join us, historian, literary editor of The Spectator. So we're going all upmarket here at Morning Glory. Meanwhile, we'll have this from Joanna in Salisbury. Ed Davey missed his moment. Didn't the kings of old have a court jester after dinner? Very true. This is Talk. We'll see you after the news.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 3 minutes past 7. It is Thursday, the 18th of September, and a very, very good morning to you. It is rather strangely calm out there. The weather is balmy, I would say, more balmy than it should be. Apparently in London tomorrow, it's going to go up into sort of 23, 24 territory, which is a bit strange. The weekend's coming up, of course. We've just been basking in the delights of the state dinner last night, held at Windsor Castle in honour of the President of the United States and the First Lady Melania. And, of course, Donald Trump was very full fulsome in his praise of not only the King, but of the royal family, of Prince William, of the UK. He talks about the special relationship. He talks about the great things that the British Empire had done for the world, how much of American kind of style and grace had been based on what was exported there from the UK. And King Charles also similarly was very fulsome in his praise of Donald Trump and the relationship between the UK and the US. And of course there are some sort of mealy-mouthed broadcasting organisations which spent quite a bit of time yesterday pointing out that, oh, but there's a lot of people who don't like Donald Trump, and here's some pictures of them demonstrating in London, and they're all waving Palestinian flags and saying Zionism out and making noises about Israel and the terrible genocide that's going on. You know, they weren't really protesting against Donald Trump. They were just protesting because they're lefty weirdos who think they have to protest against absolutely everything. And some of them who were talking about why they didn't like Donald Trump were honestly like some teenage students, absolutely and utterly ridiculous. But the front page is absolutely chock full of incredible pictures. The special bond, it says on the front page of The Sun, pictures of the King and Queen standing next to Donald Trump and his First Lady. President hails the UK at a banquet, and then the band plays 007. And the Daily Mail's got Kate, the Princess of Wales, glittering in a gold lace gown. Front page of The Times has got the main story saying, "We are kin," according to the King. He's told Donald Trump that basically we are the closest of kin, and there's such a special relationship between the two countries that nothing can turn it asunder. Front page is also with some stories about the ramifications of the one-in, one-out policy, which is in the gutter, dead in the water, you might say. The front page of the Daily Mail basically says that now the Home Secretary is blasting lefty lawyers. She's blaming the humiliation of the Home Office on lefty lawyers who keep saying that people trying to dodge deportation are claiming to be victims of modern slavery. She's now saying on the front of the Times she wants a slavery law review because so many people are using it as an excuse to stay in this country. Meanwhile, the Telegraph have got a story that the Home Office have got a charity connected to them, which they fund, which is actually helping people to stay in this country illegally, telling them how to avoid deportation, the bail for immigration detainees, a 12-page booklet that they give to asylum seekers and migrants to say, here's what you say you're suffering from mental health, say you're suffering inhuman treatment, say you've been tortured, say you've been trafficked, and you can't be sent out of the country. Absolutely extraordinary stuff. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. 6 minutes past 7. Also this morning we had a sad voice note in the first hour of the show from a listener who said that he's just been made redundant. So he wanted to thank Keir Starmer for all of the national insurance hikes that the Chancellor of the Exchequer has managed to put on a load of companies because so many people are now losing their jobs. 143,000 fewer people in work than there were when Labour got in, and that's a direct result of companies basically laying people off. Let's get a voice note from Steve.
Morning, Mike. This is Stephen Harts. At the weekend, my wife and I were discussing whether or not we should be upgrading her car. And the conclusion we came to was that she had a letter through saying she will get no pay rise this year because of the national insurance hike that the government have imposed on her employers. And we've had letters through at work saying that there's going to be redundancies. So we can't take that risk to put the money down and finance a new car. So that's another dent to the economy. Because people like me aren't going to spend money in the economy. We're not going to borrow money. We're not going to finance a car. You know, we're not going to take out loans because we're too frightened that we'll lose our jobs because of Rachel Thieves and her pathetic performance as Chancellor.
Yeah, Steve, you speak for an awful lot of people because many people I speak to say exactly the same thing. They don't know what the future is going to hold. They don't want to expend any more money than they've got. They can't buy themselves a new holiday. They can't buy themselves a new car. They can't make any plans seriously for the future. People with pensions as well are also wondering what to do next because it now looks as though there might be some attachment being made because that idiot Torsten Bell is a guy who thinks that you shouldn't have the right to withdraw a lump sum out of your pension because he's such a left-winger. At the moment, you're allowed to take a 25% lump sum out of your pension when you reach the age of 55. And some people use it to pay off a mortgage, some people use it to pay off debt. You know, if you're going into retirement, you don't want to have a huge amount of sort of outgoings, and so sometimes you take money out of your pension in order to make that be reduced. At the moment, I think it's up to something like £300,000 that you're allowed to take out. Torsten Bell would like to make it 40,000. and there's a lot of people worried about putting money into their pensions now because they don't know exactly when Rachel Reeves is going to come and steal it from them. Let's talk to James Price, former government advisor, of course, who knows a thing or two about the special relationship between the UK and the US of A. Very good morning to you, James.
Hello, my friend. It's great to see you.
Good to see you. I mean, we'll get on to the economy and the nastiness of what these Labour ghastly people are doing to this country. But what a great night last night. What a fantastic occasion. So good to see all the pageantry at Windsor. And I was talking to Reem Ibrahim this morning and saying, you know, this is what Britain is great at, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely right. In amidst of so many awful stories and terrible things happening to the country, it's wonderful to see that we can still turn these things on, and that it's sometimes nice to see our country and its legacy and its history and its potential through the eyes of our closest friends across the pond. And as Donald Trump said, the word special in special relationship doesn't even come close to describing it, which it warmed my heart. I thought it was absolutely wonderful. And the whole thing reminded me of Winston Churchill's final piece of advice ever to his cabinet. This is, he gets back in, he has a second stroke and knows he has to stand down, and he tells his cabinet two things. One, he says, man is spirit. And the second thing he says is never be separated from the Americans. And I think that advice is as good today as it was in the 1950s.
Absolutely right. And strangely, a lot of commentators yesterday were talking about how Keir Starmer has navigated his relationship with Donald Trump rather well, and, you know, Trump likes him and all of this. I'm not sure I go along with that. I think Trump regards Starmer as a weak man, regards him as somebody that he can push around, and regards him as somebody that will just jump when he tells him to jump, and that's why Trump likes him.
Yeah, I'm afraid I think that's probably right. Is it Alison Pearson in The Telegraph who said that that Trump recognises this and is kind of playing with him, and there will be a moment where he goes in for the kill? And you know, what we know the Americans care about an awful lot have been all the kind of free speech impingements that have been happening here in Britain, not only against big American tech companies, but they're just very much against the concept of impinging people's speech. The First Amendment in the United States guarantees people much greater rights of speech than we have in Britain right now, and that's come up at time and time again. And whilst Donald Trump was stood there receiving all these wonderful accolades and all the rest of it, an American lady living in the United Kingdom was visited by a police officer to try and elicit an apology out of her for something mean that she'd said on Facebook, although the American woman was not allowed to know who or what it was, and it was only the intervention of the fabulous Free Speech Union that got Thames Valley Police to drop this. So a small microcosm there of how weak Starmer is and how weak we are when it comes to the important shared values, or values that we're at least supposed to share.
Absolutely. Let's have a look at what Trump said about the special relationship at the banquet last night.
The British Empire laid the foundations of law, liberty, free speech, and individual rights virtually everywhere the Union Jack has ever flown, including a place called America. You know that place very well, don't you? His Majesty spoke eloquently about the bond which inspired Sir Winston Churchill, and the bust is in the Oval Office right now, the beautiful bust of Winston Churchill, to coin the phrase special relationship. But seen from American eyes, the word special does not begin to do it justice. We're joined by history and fate, and by love and language, and by transcendent ties of culture, tradition, ancestry.
The ties are incredibly historic, and it's nice to know that the bust of Winston Churchill is back in the Oval Office, isn't it? Because that was removed, I think, by Barack Obama when he first moved in as president. Yeah,
absolutely right. I mean, I'm genuinely, when I hear Trump speak like that, it makes me so proud and so happy, and I just I hope that we go forward to the rest of this century and beyond in an ever closer tie with our American cousins, for all the kind of crap that you'll hear from people go, oh, Trump is horrible, and then much smaller crowds of people protesting this time, because I think people have seen his track record.
Exactly right. And also so many people seeing the track record of our current government would prefer to have Donald Trump running the country than bloody Keir Starmer.
Right, absolutely right. But I think it shows that, as Trump himself there said, it goes way beyond politics. It even goes beyond business, although we are, I think, each other's biggest kind of employers and trading partners on a country-by-country basis, and huge amounts of investment going back and forth. It goes deeper than the military and enormous intelligence sharing ties. it goes right into the marrow of our bones and into culture and into society. You know, regular viewers will know that I'm married to an American, and I'm very proud of that. And she's wonderful. She fits in here better than most other people from most other cultures around the world. And I'd be very happy with higher American immigration, just as I think we all want to have much lower immigration from other places. But the key bit of it, Mike, is that I don't think we've ever had a more pro-Anglo president in the White House than we do right now. We've never had an American president who loves Britain so much. And yet I don't say this glibly or lightly, a prime minister who seems to love Britain so little.
Yes.
But Starmer seems embarrassed of our history and our legacy, and he seems ashamed of our greatness. And that's why he seems to be so desperate to try and ruin it and put us down and say that we're not special. We're just a normal, boring, humdrum country where international law is more important than our, centuries, well, not more than centuries, more than millennia-old history of common law.
Yeah, exactly right. And I mean, of course, we've got the left-wing media establishment to deal with as well. I mean, I was saying earlier on that the BBC yesterday, while they were covering all of the great sort of pageantry in Windsor, they had to have a little corner of the screen covering the ridiculously kind of tawdry-looking demo that was going on in central London with a few hundred sort of ragtag and bobtail kind of blue rinse brigade types who are just insane. And, it doesn't represent anything. Why the hell do they insist on showing it?
Why do these people not have jobs? This is the bit that always gets me. They've got all this time to wander off to Windsor and hold these silly things and make their silly banners. And, a lot of them are just like, Trump is a insert swear word here. Like, really? That's what you're doing? I would like that person to be investigated and see if that in any way, shape or form, any of those people are perhaps claiming that they're too poorly to be able to work. Because if you're too poorly to be able to work, but not too poorly to go off and wave a silly little banner that you've spent hours and hours making at Donald Trump, then maybe you shouldn't be in receipt of such huge amounts of taxpayers' money, perhaps.
Yes, I think that's probably fair. Meanwhile, back home in the Home Office, things are going from bad to worse. We've got, Shabana Mahmood has suddenly worked out that lefty lawyers are a bit of a problem, and that somehow, some of the charities that they support have also been helping some of these illegal migrants to stay in this country by faking mental health problems or pretending they've been trafficked or saying they suffered torture or inhuman treatment. They've actually done a booklet which has been financed by taxpayers, financed by the Home Office and financed by Comic Relief to tell these people, this is what you say if you get told you're going to be deported, and then you won't be deported.
It's absolutely outrageous, isn't it? And any new government that comes in needs to scrap all of this stuff immediately. And Shabana Mahmood, until that point, should start with the lefty lawyer in Downing Street who's making this such a problem. This is the nub of it. When you have a prime minister whose whole life has been predicated on this complete nonsense, international law being more important than domestic law, you will find yourself unable to deal with all the difficult problems that we've got. I don't like to quote Karl Marx terribly often, but he did once say that history repeats itself first as tragedy, then as farce. And I found myself yesterday rereading the resignation letter of Robert Jenrick, the shadow justice secretary who came runner-up for the Tory leadership, a very excellent man who's getting sounder and more right-wing as the days go on. And in his resignation letter, he accuses Rishi Sunak, the last Prime Minister, of not doing what was needed to be done in order to stop the boats, the changes to law, asserting the primacy of Parliament, smashing up these rancid little NGOs and fake charities that suck on the taxpayer teat. Rishi didn't do anything about it. And if Keir Starmer and Shabana Mahmood and all the other Labour people had actually read Rob Jenrick's very noble resignation letter a couple of years ago, they would have had something of a blueprint for how to stop the boats. They haven't done it. Why? Either because they're thick, because they're arrogant, or maybe they don't really want to stop the boats. They just want more of these people coming in to further dilute the culture that's made this island so special.
I mean, it is absolutely incredible, isn't it? Incredible how bad things have got, because the one-in, one-out policy, clearly, as we said it wouldn't, doesn't work. They haven't been able to get anybody onto a plane since Monday. We're now into Thursday, and they were supposed to be trying to get rid of at least 100 people by the end of the first week. But don't worry, because we've got a plane load of migrants coming in from France on Saturday, who are the ones who are being exchanged for the ones we haven't sent them. So they've actually now started, they've opened up a new front for illegal migrants to come here on planes as well as on boats.
It's the one in, one... Well, by the way, one in, one out, what a Kafkaesque horror of a phrase.
Exactly.
Which by definition, wouldn't actually reduce numbers, right? Even if you were
even if it was worked,
Right. Actually, what it is at the moment is, by my calculation, about 8,500 to nil.
Yes.
Right? That's not exactly what I would call success. And until, as I say, these people fix the deep-seated legal problems, that we're not going to get anything done. And the only thing we can hope is that whether it's Reform or the Conservatives or, my probable preference of a kind of coalition of uniting the right, finally, that has been split for far too long, has a plan to get this stuff done on day one. And we're going to start seeing in the United States of America, I read somewhere they've already had about 2 million illegals leave the country in 6 months in the United States.
Yeah, they call it self-deporting because they don't want to be rounded up and they don't want to be locked up. And so they're like, if we ever want to try and come back and live here legally, we're going to go home and figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely right. And again, we learned from the United States that however many people illegally crossed that border, it was because Joe Biden weakened that border considerably, deliberately stood people down, wouldn't allow the governor of Texas to put various troops on there, didn't man various checking points. And within a few days of Trump taking over, that stopped. And it's almost completely stopped from the maybe 20 million illegals in that country now being reduced. It can be done. And I think, Farage went wet for a while where he said it would be impossible to do. And I think that, people like Rob Jenrick getting more robust on this for the Tory party has stiffened Farage's sinews and stiffened his resolve. So I hope that we continue with this excellent competition between Reform and the Tories, who could be more robust. Because frankly, I do not want this country to be full of third world illegal immigrants about whom we know nothing, who go around committing heinous crimes like the one we saw in Hyde Park in London.
And have you seen the latest on that guy? The latest on that Egyptian refugee who came here illegally on a small boat, who was being put up in a hotel, and it turns out the reason he left Egypt was because he was a terrorist, and he's actually been convicted as an Islamic terrorist working for the Muslim Brotherhood in a bomb factory, and he was sentenced in his absence to 7 years in prison in Egypt. I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
If the reason that we have to take this guy because he says he's going to be treated badly when he goes back to Egypt because he's a terrorist. So Britain apparently now, according to international law, has an obligation to take terrorists from around the world because Egypt's government will treat them badly.
I know.
I mean, that is a joke that a satire writer would have written and been thrown out for being too farcical, even for this government. And by the way, let's be clear what that guy did. He's been here for a little while claiming that political asylum. And let's say he was just, a nice, cuddly, Marxist academic or whatever, not the terrorist that he is. If that were me and I were fleeing political persecution somewhere, the country that took me in, I probably wouldn't go around raping the women of that country like this man has done. Afuera, let's get these people out. It's enough. Enough is enough. It's becoming existential for the survival of our civilization. Get them out.
Exactly right, James. I couldn't have put it better myself. Get them out. Quite right too. Former Government Advisor James Price, thank you very much indeed. Let's get a voice note from Judith on the Hyde Park.
Good morning, Mike. It's Judy from Altoffs, West Yorkshire. Is anybody surprised that this chappie that's been found guilty of rape is a terrorist? ISIS told the West that it would be sending a lot of their soldiers to the West, saying that they were refugees. Now, we all know this, they know it in government, but still they allow thousands and thousands of unvetted men into this country, and women as well, because women can be terrorists if they feel like it. The last government and this government are a danger to this country, a real danger. Thank you.
Judith, it's very sensible as ever. Thank you very much indeed. This from Matt in the East Midlands, who says, morning, Mike. I just wanted to say, normally I'm so depressed by the doom and gloom of the shower that is the UK on a regular basis, but commuting this morning, listening to Trump at the Banquet, listening to the madness of Ed Davey, what a total lunatic. And your commentary on the former poet laureate, I just find hilarious. Thank you for bringing my smile back on a rainy Thursday morning. Great show. As always, have a great day. And one from Mark in Selby says, what a gracious speech by President Trump. The left will hate it. How good to hear a leader speak without going and every other word. Keir could learn so much from Donald on how to act and speak to an audience. God bless the USA. Well, very true. People are beginning to work out that actually Donald Trump isn't the big bad wolf, and in fact it's Keir Starmer, whose new approval ratings, by the way, have hit a new low, minus 50 now. I'm not sure that they've ever gone any lower than that. I think we'll have to change the way the graph's put together in order to show it up. Coming up, though, we're going to hear Nigel Farage talking to Harry Cole on his new show, Harry Cole Saves the West, last night. We're going to talk to the literary editor of The Spectator, Alexander Larman, about the special relationship. This is Talk.
tells me that number 10 have been trying to keep quite a tight lid on the number of questions that will be asked.
Funny that.
Donald Trump, he's a pretty freewheeling guy, but he is also the guest here. Normally, when he hosts these sort of press conferences on his home turf in the Oval Office or in the East Wing of the White House, he takes a lot of questions, and he doesn't have a sort of pre-selected list like Starmer likes to have of he knows what's coming, and he's much more of a free for all.
Yeah.
I suspect they're going to meet somewhere in the middle there.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:27, very nearly, right here on Thursday morning. It's the 18th of September, the morning after the night before, the state banquet in Windsor Castle, a very grand affair indeed, covered by all manner of celebrities and all manner of dignitaries, and of course Keir Starmer was there as well. He's got a press conference this afternoon with Donald Trump over at Chequers, which is where the President will be going a little bit later on, and it could be a little bit of a squeaky one, shall we say. Let's get a voice note from Hev.
Good morning, Mike. Hev from Kent here. This banquet and all that, in today's economic climate, I feel like they're just rubbing their noses in it. All the pomp and ceremony and this and that and all the rest of it. And who's paying for it? The taxpayers paying for them to look all glitzy and glam. It just, I don't know, just winds me up. It's very Starmer, though, isn't it? I mean, Starmer loves all of that sort of thing. But I understand, it's royalty, but, tone it down a little bit, please, because it's just, it really is rubbing their damn noses in it, and it gets my goat.
See, I completely disagree with that, Hev. I mean, I rather like seeing the pomp and ceremony. I understand that there's money that could be spent elsewhere, but I tell you what, this government wasted an awful lot more money than they spent on that last night on some stuff that you really don't want to know about, and I think it's probably a drop in the ocean compared to what, for example, the debt crisis is costing us. 20 billion plus a month is being spent on just paying off our debt. I think that you could see the absolute pleasure on Donald Trump's face and how brilliant Britain looks to America as a result of that. So let's talk to Alexander Larman, author, historian, literary editor of The Spectator. Alexander, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. How's it going?
Yeah, very well indeed. I mean, there will inevitably be those people who say, we're in this terrible period of austerity, we shouldn't be spending that kind of money on this kind of pomp and ceremony. I think, given that it's one of the few things we do rather well now, whatever money it costs is probably worth it, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, if you look at what happened yesterday, from every single aspect of it, from President Trump's appearance to speeches at the state banquet, it was all done exceptionally well. I mean, as I write in The Spectator today, it couldn't have gone better. First of all, from Donald Trump's perspective, I mean, he was clearly having a wonderful time. And in fact, what I was very interested in, when he made his speech, it had been briefed just before, it would have some remarks about free speech in it, which obviously would have been pointed and controversial and very Trump. But of course, in the end, he didn't say anything like that. I mean, there was a very pro-American remark about how he'd turned a very cold country into a very hot one. But apart from that, it was incredibly respectful, and it was, I mean, probably the most emollient I've ever heard him in a public sphere, because what we have with Donald Trump is somebody who, in his own country, is very quick to rail against his enemies and anyone who doesn't agree with him. But he is a properly paid-up Anglophile, as James was saying a moment ago. There has not been a president who has had such a warm feeling towards Britain in living memory.
Yeah, and I think, as I say, we're not at a particularly high ebb. We're rather low ebb at the moment with this government and with this kind of economy that we've got, and the kind of, falling apart of an awful lot of what used to be great in Britain. And I think we should celebrate whatever is great in Britain. And I think the monarchy and the pageantry that we saw yesterday, we do it really well.
Yes, I mean, certainly, I cannot say that the King was particularly looking forward to seeing Donald Trump, because the two men are very different. And Charles might well see Trump as a vulgarian. But on the other hand, he also knows that his responsibility when it comes to state visits is not to let his personal feelings show, but to do a very good job. So that speech he gave last night I thought was similarly excellent. It was witty, it was well judged. I mean, one thing I'd like to say about the King is that he gets a bad press in some quarters for what are perceived as his liberal left views and tree hugging, and that may or may not be true. He's very good at speeches and public addresses and stuff like that, in a way that his mother just wasn't. And I think it's because when he was young, he had, you know, he was never going to be an actor, but he had ideas of being an actor. And so he really does pull off these set piece occasions well. And it's actually a pleasure to hear him speak rather than an ordeal.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I mean, he's been doing it for a very long time. And as have we been doing all of that, you know, kind of slightly over the top Banquet thing. I mean, I don't know if you've seen it on the front page of The Guardian this morning. There's a rather pathetic poem. Yeah, I mean, I know, I'm sorry to introduce it at this point in time, but I mean, it's so ridiculous. It's a poem by Carol Ann Duffy, the former poet laureate, which is so ridiculously bad. It's laughable. It's as if it's written by Dave Spart, you know, from the old days of Private Eye. But she talks about, you know, 6 crystal glasses per setting and all of that. You know, and for those of us who have occasionally been to one of those kind of fancy dinners where you get all sorts of cutlery, you're not quite sure what to do with it, and all sorts of glasses for different drinks, and you're not quite sure what to do with them, I think it's rather eccentrically brilliant that we do that sort of thing.
Yes, I mean, one thing that we are good at in Britain is that kind of very public tradition. And certainly, I mean, I don't know if Ms. Duffy is writing her, no doubt, brilliant poem in an attempt to poke fun at the whole thing. But you shouldn't poke fun at British traditions because, I mean, we got our £15 million worth last night because what you hope is that Trump's presence here is not just for fun. There's a serious point behind it. There's a serious political and trade point. But the special relationship does matter. And of course, what Charles will have been hoping, I mean, those very pointed remarks about Zelensky and Ukraine did not come out of nowhere. And it's interesting because I think that he and the government both feel that if Trump and this administration can become more pro-Ukraine, and more anti-Putin, there will be a real sense of the West being emboldened. And so the stakes are relatively high, and any way you can get through to Trump is going to be welcome. And so last night, obviously, yes, you have the glasses and the spoons and all the rest of it, but you also have a serious point behind it.
Yeah, and of course we've got the press conference coming up later on today. Let me just play you this little clip. This is from last night's Harry Cole show. Harry Cole Saves the West. He was interviewing Nigel Farage, who of course wasn't invited to the state banquet. Here's what he had to say.
You've seen the president recently. Does he consider you, have you spoken about the fact that, you know, if the general election was held in the UK tomorrow, you were going to be the Prime Minister? Does he know that?
He knows that. He knows that. In fact, all the American administration are acutely aware of it. And they think they see some similarities in what they've done and what we've done. And you know what? We speak the same language. We share a culture. But of course, our politics is very, very different. Other than one thing. One of the big reasons that Trump got elected is he said he would stop illegal migrants coming into America through the southern border. Looking at the numbers, they're down by over 90%. And I kind of think that dynamic in the American election will play out in the British general election whenever that happens too.
And there is definitely a large tranche of people in this country who are very much in admiration of what Donald Trump's done in the US and would rather like to see it here.
Yes, I mean, something that I would always be nervous about is saying that the only issue in Britain is migration, because obviously it is an issue, but I think there's so many more issues that reducing what's going to happen at the next election simply to a question of that is, I'd say, a bold step, because obviously you've got the global situation, you've got, you know, the things that are going wrong at home in our very heart. And just seeing this as a problem is going to be solved by ending migration is, I think, rather simplistic. But on the other hand, what you can see at the moment in Britain is there is a sense that Nigel Farage, I think at this time, is almost certainly going to become Prime Minister, whether as the head of a reform government or as some part of Tory reform coalition. And so looking to Trump and what he's achieved in America is, I think, what every single politician should be doing, because Whether you like Trump or not, you cannot deny that he has changed politics. He's altered the Overton window in America forever. And I can't see America going... I mean, because what's going to happen at the next election is going to be Gavin Newsom and or AOC running against, in all likelihood, J.D. Vance.
Yeah.
And if the government has done their job and what they were elected to do, they will be unassailable. And so you will see... I mean, I've just seen about Jimmy Kimmel being fired.
Yeah.
Now, he's something that it would just not have happened under a Biden administration. And because you see, in this country, nothing is happening. We are at absolute stasis. We have a rotten prime minister and a rotten government who are not getting anything done. And actually, that's one of the reasons why you look at the king as this ever-fixed mark of somebody who actually is standing for something greater. Because I mean, we now assume that Starmer's going to be gone in a matter of months. Do you think this is a man who came in last year for this staggering election victory, and what to show for it? Absolutely nothing.
Right. And he's completely squandered it. He's now, as I'm saying, I'm not sure they can go any lower than -50, but that's his approval rating at the moment. It's an all-time low. It's a record even for him. And you saw him yesterday standing there looking for all the world like he didn't even want to be there because he's so embarrassed about how badly it's going.
Of course he doesn't want to be there. I mean, this is the whole point, is that he doesn't look like a prime minister. He doesn't look like a statesman. I mean, in that picture, you're just showing. I mean, look at the body language, look at the face. He seems, I mean, his wife seems far more happy and far more suited to be there than he is. But, I mean, Mike, you're right. Of a -50 approval rating, which is lower than Rishi Sunak. And actually, I must say, often I say, I wish we had Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister still, and I wish we had Jeremy Hunt as Chancellor, because actually, looking back on it now, we can see that was a period of grown-up, sensible government compared to the absolute clown show we have now.
Well, yeah, I mean, it makes it look like a golden era, which is frightening, really, isn't it? But it's great to talk to you, Alexander Larman. Thank you very much indeed. Author, historian, literary editor of The Spectator, with some very interesting observations on what happened last night and why so many people now in this country would rather side with Donald Trump than with Keir Starmer. Let's have a voice note from Steve.
Hi Mike, Steve from East London here. Listen, I was made redundant back in June. I still haven't received any money from the DWP yet. I'm not going to get anything till about October. It's an absolutely ridiculous situation. I'm going to be risk-made homeless. I haven't eaten a proper meal for about several weeks. I don't know where to go. By October, when I get some money through, I doubt I'll be able to afford to have a proper hot meal by then. Anyway, great show, Mike. Thanks a lot. See ya. Bye.
Steve, thanks for calling. That's a shocking story. So many people now I think we're going to be hearing from. It's one of those things that sometimes starts slowly, but we'll be hearing, I suspect, from a lot of people, I mean, who've been made redundant in recent times. 143,000 that we know of have disappeared off the payroll figures since Rachel Reeves became Chancellor. That's an awful lot of people and an awful lot of money going out of the system and an awful lot of people going back onto the benefits system, which costs, of course, the government even more money. So they are literally strangling the economy at birth. You know, they haven't made great strides into collecting loads and loads of taxes, which are then funding really, really interesting, you know, endeavours. And I've got all sorts of ridiculous numbers being flown at me, right? I've got this great tweet here from John in Germany, who says, did you say £150 billion worth of investment to create 7,500 jobs? Which is what the tech giants are supposedly going to bring. He says 20 million per job. That can't be right. Who did the maths? Rachel Reeves. Well, that's a good point. I don't know. And Paul in Belfast says, I wonder if the mention of Churchill in the White House was a dig at Starmer, who removed portraits of Churchill and Thatcher from various parliamentary locations after their election victory. Yeah. Well, one of the weird things about Starmer, in addition to the fact that he doesn't have a favourite book, doesn't have a favourite film, doesn't have a favourite song, doesn't like people in portraits looking at him, apparently. He's such a weirdo. 7:38.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to the Morning Glory, 7:41. The time is flying, ladies and gentlemen. It's Thursday, the 18th of September. It's the morning after the night before the state banquet, where Britain was absolutely at its best, entertaining Donald Trump, the President of the United States of America, a whole series of dignitaries, including, of course, Melania, the First Lady. Let's get a voice note from Darren.
Morning, Mike. Darren from Suffolk. Great show as ever. Out with the dog, 17 degrees. Now, Mike, me and you are similar ages. I've been fortunate enough to run a business in my life and sell my share, and I've got more than one car. But even this one out, one in situation affects cars as well, because I've decided this time not to replace a car. I'm actually going to sell it, which means one less sale for new car manufacturers. And it also means no tax on that car, no insurance on that car. So this one out, one in terms of cars is also broken. So I'm never going electric. It's a scam. Have a good day.
Darren, quite right. You don't want to go electric. Absolute waste of money, waste of time, and you can never charge the bleeding thing either, because there's never enough charging points, are there? This from Martin, who says, in Scunthorpe, so in the White House there's a bust of Churchill. What was the first thing Starmer started removing from number 10 when he got the keys? Well, it was the Churchill portrait, wasn't it? Let's have a listen to what he said about portraits.
This is not actually about Margaret Thatcher at all. I don't like images and pictures of people staring down at me. I've had it all my life. When I was a lawyer, I used to have sort of pictures of judges staring. I don't like it. I like landscapes. So this is my study, it's my private place where I go to work. I didn't want a picture of anyone. It's a picture of landscapes. As a lawyer, people tried to persuade me that I needed pictures of judges staring at me the whole time. I didn't like it. I don't like it anymore if they're politicians. There isn't any politician staring at me in my study where I just get on with the work I need to get on with.
Well, ruining the country. He doesn't like portraits staring down at him. Was he some kind of, psychopath? It's not staring down at you. It doesn't got any eyes that move. It's a painting. It's not staring at you. Rodney, you plonker. Let's talk to Howard Cox, founder of Fair Fuel UK. Howard, very good morning to you.
Good morning, long time no speak.
Yeah, indeed. How you doing, man?
I'm pretty busy.
What sort of nutter doesn't like portraits staring down at him in a room? This is the Prime Minister of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
Well, I've got one of you, Mike, in my bedroom.
Well, I'm not staring at you. I'm just kind of looking over my shoulder, coquettishly, presumably. So let's talk to me about Sadiq Khan, because he's back in the news. He's now become, sadly, the highest paid public official in the country, apparently, or at least politician. But it turns out he's been up to his old tricks with the low traffic neighbourhoods and some of the figures coming out of it. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, this is a taxpayers-funded report which was supposed to highlight the fact that low traffic neighbourhoods, and bear in mind they were introduced under the COVID time as an emergency government funding scheme of a £250 million was put out of it without consultation. It was a rapid rollout, and the idea was to reduce traffic, noise, pollution and road danger, they say, improving the safety and increasing walking and cycling. Well, yes, they have improved cycling. There's a lot more cycling, dare I say it, which I hate with a passion. Yeah. But walking is not increased. And believe it or not, cars driving has actually gone up.
Well, I mean, there was a bit of an increase in walking last week when the tubes were on strike, because there saw loads of people having to walk to work. But he didn't do anything about that either.
No, well, let's face it, he's created a cesspit of congestion and rampant crime. That's what he's famous for, and he gets a pay rise and a knighthood for doing that. And I haven't hated more anyone than Sadiq Khan. I'm sorry, what he's done to our proud capital city. I was born in London, I love London, everything about London, but at the moment, I wouldn't let anyone walk down after 9 o'clock, walking down anywhere, because you risk, and even during the day, you risk your phone being nicked, and right in front of you. And I'm always telling my daughter, make sure you're not standing there like with your phone, because I've been victim of a bit of a mugging in Charing Cross, and fortunately they didn't get away with it, but they tried to take my phone off me as I was walking out.
Right, I know. I mean, there isn't anyone that you speak to who lives and works in London who hasn't had some experience like that. It's absolutely shocking. But over the past 5 years, this piece of the Times tells me, Sadiq Khan has repeatedly claimed that LTNs help to reduce traffic and are therefore good for the planet. But it turns out that actually that's not true.
Well, the report, as I say, it's a taxpayers' fund report. They're trying to cover it up, like they did with the Imperial College thing regarding ULEZ, the expansion of ULEZ, because the Imperial College actually came out with a report to say that ULEZ expansion wouldn't improve air quality.
Yeah.
And I think the deputy prime, sorry, no, he said prime minister, the deputy mayor, I think it was Shirley Rodriguez, she actually came out with trying to tell them to please, can you change the report, please? And this one again, they're suppressing the truth because it doesn't fit their agenda. Classic Sadiq Khan, cover up and lies.
Exactly. It says in the piece here, in the emails between TfL and the university, which I think is the Westminster University, and a woman called Professor Rachel Aldred from the Active Travel Academy. Yeah, we know when these people get paid. And apparently one of the emails said that the conclusions of the study, in their words, may be a bit underwhelming to merit much fanfare, i.e., basically, it doesn't prove the point that we want.
Well, the economic damage to the city in terms of congestion caused by moving traffic to other areas, which are, they trying to stop this going through, they called it rat runs, didn't they? And what we were talking about now is that most of the traffic now has been moved to other areas and causing much more congestion. Right. The economy, I proved with the CBR that what he's doing with various traffic congestion, idealistic plans he's got, has cost something like £1 billion a year to GDP of London. Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. How does this man continue to operate and allow to operate?
Well, I mean, he puts out even more and ever more ridiculous tweets. It's a bit like Starmer does, It's almost as if he's living in some kind of parallel universe. I mean, he put one out yesterday. He's going, hate will never win. And you're going, well, never mind that. Can you just fix the roads, because there's an awful lot of road closures going on at the moment as well, which make it even more difficult for people to get around.
And with the diversion signs going where? We never know what roads blocked or roads closed. And don't forget, emergency service access was impacted by LTNs. You saw a number of times, ambulances and fire brigade having to turn round. And also the impact on the disabled, especially those who get a taxi and they're dropped off because the taxi driver's not allowed to go down that road, which is an LTN. Right. Those are the sorts of things happen. There's no, joined up thinking whatsoever. In fact, there's no thinking whatsoever at all.
No. And meanwhile, he keeps hiring more people for all of these various different projects. I mean, like I said, this woman who's from the Westminster University Active Travel Academy used to be a trustee of the London Cycling Campaign. And there's all these kind of, what you might call Quango-type bodies which have been set up around hatred of the motorists, isn't there?
Absolutely. Well, that's going right across the country, don't forget. And in about 2.5 months' time, in the Christmas budget, that's what it is near as, damn it, we're going to be seeing incredible tax increases. And I'm hearing that fuel duty, Mike, because is what my last 15 years of living on this planet has been involved, is we're going to see a big rise. I don't think I'm going to get away with it again, of getting another freeze. And, the motorist is just the first target, as always.
Well, this is it. I mean, they can't afford to not tax anything that moves as far as the cars and people, and even animals. They'll probably find a way of taxing your cat and your dog, at some point or other, because they're so desperate for money, because all they do is waste it.
Absolutely, and I'm afraid that we know how incompetent this lot are. You've mentioned just now about how low his rating is, but you think of people like Rachel from accounts. I mean, he's even actually got his own advisory team now in number 10 to actually cover up for Rachel's mistakes. Yeah. These are the sorts of things going on. And I promise you, this is going to be absolutely horrendous, this budget. Yeah. There's no way. I mean, the borrowing, £8,000 per second in terms of what we're borrowing. That's what we're borrowing at the moment in time. You could not write this even as a fiction.
No, it's like a horror film. Absolutely horrific. Howard, good to see you. Thanks very much indeed. Howard Cox, fighting the fair fight for Fair Fuel UK, and he's the founder of that organisation, of course, as well. With more news about how useless Sadiq Khan is, but also how duplicitous he is as well. Let's get a voice note from Simon.
Morning, Mike. Simon in North Wales. Looking forward to watching Keir Starmer squirm later on, stood next to Trump doing his little Q&A. I'm sure there'll be a few questions around good old Peter Mandelson on there as well, which will be quite an interesting one. So, yeah, just on Peter Mandelson as well, I mean, he is going to be the Dominic Cummings in Keir Starmer's side, that's for sure, because, well, he obviously knows where all the bodies are buried, and, yeah, he won't go down without a fight. Can't stand either of them, but it'll be fun to watch. Have a good day, mate.
Thanks very much indeed, Simon. Jane says, this Starmer watched Carry On screaming too many times as a kid if he thinks the portraits are watching him. Yeah, I think that's right. I'm really concerned, says Ian in Eastleigh, about the Trump visit. Based on Starmer's track record on negotiation, by the time Trump leaves, Starmer will have signed a deal to take some of Trump's illegal migrants. And Jill from Berkshire says, morning, Mike. I watched the speeches from the banquet and I thought Trump's was so heartfelt and genuine. He has a true sense of love for our country and wasn't afraid to mention with praise the good things from years past that made Britain great. No white guilt and shame in sight. Trump knows the meaning of true patriotism, unlike some in this country, and I loved it. More, please. P.S. Can't wait for the questions from the press today. Great show as always. Yeah, I mean, we'll be teeing that one up for you, I'm sure, later on this afternoon. Keir Starmer and Donald Trump. Joint press conference sometime in the mid-afternoon. We'll be seeing that and bringing it to you live right here on Talk. Coming up at 7:51, we're going to talk about the NHS.
On his home turf in the Oval Office or in the East Wing of the White House, he takes a lot of questions and he doesn't have a sort of pre-selected list like Starmer likes to have of, he knows what's coming, and he'd be much more of a free-for-all.
Yeah.
I suspect they're going to meet somewhere in the middle there.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 7:55. I'm Mike Graham. The Home Secretary complaining about lefty lawyers. Good morning, Mike, says Peter. Her boss is a lefty lawyer. He couldn't make it up. The last 14 months have been an example of an unfunny farce, one catastrophe after another. How much longer can it go on? Well, not much longer, I don't think, Peter, for heaven's sake, because nothing is working, including, of course, the NHS. We found out that NHS waiting lists have actually gone up in the past week or so, and also it turns out because of the strikes and because of all sorts of other things going on, they're shutting down about 2 GP surgeries every single week. And now we hear that 1 in 3 GPs in England don't work in the NHS. Unbelievable. Let's find out why. Dr. Lawrence Buckman's here, former NHS GP and ex-chair of the BMA's GPs Committee. Dr. Lawrence, very good morning to you.
Morning.
What's going on here? Why is 1 in 3 GPs in England not working in the NHS? What's happening?
It's a collection of several different factors that have all hit at once, all entirely predictable and indeed predicted by me and others, that the number of people coming into general practice has been too small for a really long time. Yeah. That GPs who've come from abroad have mostly have now retired. We had a big surge of doctors from the Asian subcontinent, and that's now retiring. So they're going. They kept the service going in many parts of the country. They're not there anymore. Doctors from abroad can't get visas to work in the UK. That's a big problem, where doctors who've come from somewhere else to train then find that they can't actually get a job. But the biggest problem is the reduction, the relative reduction in funding for practices, not money for GP pay, but money to employ people in the practice, which includes other GPs. Yeah. So the income has shrunk, the workforce has shrunk, but there are still doctors who can't get jobs because there isn't the money to pay them.
I thought West Streeting was supposed to have fixed all this. I thought they had a new settlement with GPs so that they gave them more money, which enabled them to hire more GPs. I thought that happened at the beginning of the year, didn't it?
Yes, but you can't grow a GP that fast. It takes 10 years to generate a GP. So this.
Well, what about all the ones that are out of work then? Why can't you just get them in?
Yeah, but just that money won't go very far. It's for all sorts of things. If it was $1 billion for GP pay, it'd be wonderful, but it's not.
But what I'm saying is there are instant doctors available. If there are doctors without jobs, why can't you just give them jobs?
Absolutely, but that doesn't solve the problem, because at the other end, you're leaking doctors. Either they never work in the NHS, or they go early, they go abroad, they retire. There are a collection of doctors, sadly, that I look after that are too mentally ill to work because of stress working in the service. We've reached a point where this isn't about money. No amount of money will solve it. Enabling the money to be spent by practices on GPs, making it easier to spend it, would make a difference. But the key thing is to retain the people we train and to get them jobs straight away so they don't look abroad. Because once you look abroad and go there, you don't come back. And we've reached that point now. This was all predicted and all inevitable. And the retirement bulge has happened, and now we're facing the consequence of that.
Yeah. It's a shocking state of affairs, it really is. It doesn't sound like it's going to be solved anytime soon either. Dr. Lawrence Buckman, thank you very much indeed, former NHS GP, ex-chair of the BMA's GPs Committee. I mean, I don't know about you, but I can't imagine anything that's worse run than the NHS. I don't know who's been running it into the ground, but it seems like everybody has. And I don't blame politicians for it. I blame the people who are actually the administrators of the service, because clearly they don't know what the hell they're doing, as Donald Trump would say. Mike, one of your contributors, early callers, was complaining about the cost of Trump's visit, and whilst I understand her concerns in the current economic environment, she has to understand that the US incoming investment is $150 billion, and the pomp and ceremony is really just a sweetener for that investment. That's from Neil. Yeah, I mean, I'm still slightly curious about this investment that's coming in, because like everything that Keir Starmer boasts about, it's probably slightly differing from the truth. Whether we actually benefit to any large extent from this kind of money coming in, we will find out in good order. Sarah Pochin from Reform coming up next after the news right here on Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. Coming up to very nearly 3 minutes past 8. It is, of course, Thursday, the 18th of September, the morning after the night before the state banquet, of course, that was held over in Windsor with King Charles and Camilla hosting President Trump and Melania and a whole host of dignitaries, American diplomats, and some very fine wines were drunk and some very fine food was eaten and an awful lot of business was actually done, it would seem. Keir Starmer this morning claiming that there's an historic £150 billion worth of investment commitments coming in from US companies to the UK. He's put that out as a tweet this morning. He says he's going to create 7,600 high-quality jobs. Nobody's quite sure what those jobs will be and how soon they will be available. What we do know, and we've heard from people this morning, is there's a lot of redundancies being made at the moment. 143,000 fewer people now on the payroll of this country than there were before Labour got in. So that's a large number of people who are now out of work thanks to Labour's bad economic policies and their completely mad immigration policy, which is refusing to really change anything at all about moving illegal migrants out of this country. We're reporting this morning as well on that rapist who was jailed just earlier this week, a man originally from Egypt who came here claiming that he wanted asylum because he couldn't live in Egypt anymore because it was unsafe for him. Well, it turns out that he couldn't live in Egypt anymore because he was a convicted Islamic terrorist. He was part of a bomb-making cell where he was sentenced to 7 years in prison in Egypt for being part of the Muslim Brotherhood. We let him into this country. We put him up in a hotel in West London, in Ealing, and he went to Hyde Park and raped a woman. He's now going to serve time in a British prison as a result of that. And for anyone who thinks that all of these people coming into the country are fleeing torture, well, I've got some news for you. They're not fleeing torture. They are, in fact, inflicting torture and sometimes death on people. And why the hell do we not know who these people are? Absolutely extraordinary. Sarah Pochin joins me in a moment, Reform MP for Runcorn and Helsby. She's had some interesting things to say in Parliament this week. We'll get her view on the terrible story on the front page of the Telegraph this morning, which is that the Home Office is actually physically sponsoring some charity groups, including one called Bail for Immigration Detainees, which actually has put out a 12-page booklet telling them how they can stay in this country even when they're being told they're going to be deported. You know, just tell them you've got a mental health issue. Just tell them you've been trafficked. Just tell them that you're a homosexual. Tell them that you can't go home because you'll be tortured or you'll get inhuman treatment or that somehow you've got family in the UK. Give them all this stuff. And they won't be able to get you out of the country. And so it proved as well, because even Shabana Mahmood, the new Home Secretary, is saying that lefty lawyers are ruining everything. Well, as somebody pointed out, one of them's her boss. 0344 499 1000. This, of course, is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Morning, Mike, says Caroline. I just listened to Trump's speech last night and it was truly spectacular. My only regret is that no one panned round so I could see Starmer, who must have been sliding under the table with absolute embarrassment. And Lorraine says Starmer wouldn't want Trump round for dinner. That was one hell of a dinner not to have Trump round to last night. Another huge flip-flop. Love your shows. Yeah, well, of course, we've got that clip of Starmer saying, we played it yesterday, I don't want to have Donald Trump round for dinner. I mean, what an absolute plank. Anyway, let's say a very good morning to Sarah Pochin. Sarah, very nice to see you.
Good morning, Mike. Lovely to be here as always.
Yeah, now listen, let's talk about the immigration problem first of all. I know we're going to get onto Sharia law in a minute, but, you know, this immigration situation is getting so out of hand that we discovered today this character from Egypt who's been sent to prison for raping a woman in Hyde Park was an actual convicted Islamic terrorist, and we somehow let him into the country about 3 years ago and we didn't even know.
Well, that's because the Home Office are not doing the vetting that should be done on these individuals. I mean, as you know, Reform's position is very clear. They shouldn't be and won't be allowed in the country at all when we're in government. But the fact is we are where we are at the moment. There's huge numbers coming in and they're not being vetted. And I've spoken about this, Mike. No one is taking DNA. No one is doing facial biometrics. No one is doing vetting for terrorism connections, for criminal records. I mean, we have no idea now who we are letting into this country. We can have spies coming in from hostile regimes. The opposition tell me I'm being dramatic, and you've heard them jeering at us every time we get on our feet in Parliament. But that's because they do not want to accept that we are facing a national security emergency now.
It really is that. And as you say, there's so many of these cases. I mean, we've had cases of Iranian spies coming over on the boats. And this one-in, one-out shambles, which happened this week, is so pathetic, where they started supposedly trying to get rid of one guy on Monday, couldn't do it. He comes off the plane, goes straight into a lawyer's office and is now waiting for an appeal process. Then same thing happens on Tuesday. I'm not even sure if they bothered yesterday, because they might as well just give up, mightn't they?
Do you know what, Mike? Reform have made it very clear that as soon as we're in power, we start the process of leaving the ECHR, the European Convention of Human Rights, and we repeal the Human Rights Act in this country. That is the only way to stop this industry of left-wing lawyers doing exactly what they're doing this week, again, to the new Home Secretary. Labour will never, ever come out of the ECHR. It's a fact. So Labour will never stop the appeals process that we've seen this week. It's the way it is. That is the law. And you're right. Keir Starmer is exactly one of those left-wing human rights lawyers that we're talking about. Right. So we have to come out of the ECHR, and until this Labour government do that, and I promise you they never will. And by the way, the Tory government also say they now say they will, because they listen to Reform. Everyone listens to Reform because they know we're right. But the Tories won't do it either.
Well, they didn't do it, did they? I mean, every time you see a Tory popping up and saying, this is what we should be doing, you kind of go, well, why didn't you do it when you were in power, when you actually had the power to do it? You didn't do it. And so, therefore, their credibility is kind of blown out the water, isn't it?
It is, but it's really frightening now. And look, we saw, didn't we, on Saturday, the hundreds of thousands of people that came to London peacefully to march with their flags. And all of those people, and many, many more around the country that didn't make it to London, they feel so let down, so betrayed by this government and the last government, because nobody is prioritising the British people now. And the cost to us, I think it's £5 million a day, although I have no confidence in any figures that seem to come out of the Home Office or this government. But £5 million a day is costing this country housing these illegal migrants. It has to stop. Reform will not let them in this country.
Absolutely right. Now, speaking of what Reform will do, you posed a question this week in Parliament. Let's have a look at it.
Does the new Secretary of State for Justice recognise Sharia law and Sharia courts in the United Kingdom? Yes or no?
Sharia law forms no part of the law of England and Wales, but in common with Christian, Jewish and other courts of faith where people choose to put themselves before those councils, that's part of the religious tolerance that is an important British value.
Now, I was a bit puzzled by her answer there, because a perfectly reasonable question by you. We've been told there are certainly Sharia courts and Sharia panels, if nothing else, because we've seen advertising for them up in Manchester for panellists to go and join them, right? Department of Work and Pensions website. But, I mean, I'm not aware of any Christian courts that she refers to, are you?
No, absolutely not. Effectively, what the government minister said to me yesterday was, I believe that they accept that Sharia courts will be operating in this country, and that under the guise of us being a tolerant country, then they're going to do nothing about it. The fact is, Mike, that various sources tell us that there's about 85 Sharia courts operating in this country. Sharia courts and Sharia law are based on 7th century beliefs about men being so much more powerful and dominant over women. And the reason I brought this up, I mean, it was a session obviously of questions to the new Secretary of State for Justice, which unfortunately for all of us is David Lammy. We just can't seem to get rid of him, can we? So let's watch him ruin this department as well. Although I would argue it already is in a dire state. Yeah, but the point is that Sharia law courts are about the suppression of women's rights. And as you know, I speak a lot on this subject. I speak up for women, and I will constantly speak out for the rights of women. Now, Sharia law in these courts, often a Muslim woman, can get a divorce in a UK courtroom, but parallel to this are running these Sharia courts where it's not recognised, and unless she gets a divorce through a religious court like the Sharia court, then in her community she is still considered married. Now, we know from endless examples that women are often persuaded, cajoled into staying in abusive, physically, sexually abusive relationships by these courts. We know that they lose the custody of their children when the children reach a certain age. We know that they're not given the same financial standing and rights to inheritance. It really is an absolute regime that has no place in this country of ours, no place whatsoever, and it has to go. It cannot be allowed. It cannot be tolerated. Why are we tolerating this? You live in this country, there's only one set of rules, and that is British law.
Yes, as it should be. But what I find astonishing, though, is this Labour Party, this Labour government, which bangs on an awful lot about how they want to protect women and girls. You know, every 5 minutes they're telling us how they're doing that with some new piece of legislation. And yet there are certain areas where they just don't want to go. And this is obviously one of them, because at the end of the day, it's too kind of controversial for them to look into a community that they are frightened of, and they don't want to do anything about it.
But we have to, Mike, we have to. And people like me will always be brave and take on these issues, because if we don't, this is insidiously creeping around the country. These sort of courts take place often attached to mosques. Yeah. We have to tackle this. What is happening to this country? There is no place for a parallel legal system in the United Kingdom. There is only one set of laws, and anybody that lives here, and I'll say it again, has to adhere to our laws and our laws only. We cannot, because the other thing is, of course, it's driving, there's no integration. Right. Again, if this community, if these Muslim communities are only living by, within this very insular community, their own courts and their own laws, then what does that do for integration into our society, which, of course, the Labour government and the Conservative government tell us is such a good thing, and yet will do nothing about the suppression of women in these cultures.
Yeah, and they talk again an awful lot about coercive behaviour, which is now a new criminal offence, you know, under the British law system, and yet they allow it to go on without saying a word.
Absolutely. Well, look, this week again, I made a speech in the House on Tuesday afternoon about the new sentencing bill, and you've talked about that you just mentioned there, the judicial system. There is so much wrong with the new sentencing bill. I've spoken very clearly against it. I know it's a massive topic, and maybe we can talk about it another day. But Mike, what is happening to the judicial system in this country is it's being softened, it's being dumbed down. You know, I was jeered and heckled in the chamber again on Tuesday. They try and make out I don't know what I'm talking about. I do know what I'm talking about. 20 years as a magistrate. They don't want to hear it, Mike. They're taking all custodial sentencing away from the magistrates' court. Magistrates' courts are almost going to become irrelevant, or, you know, they're going to... There's just no point to having this system anymore. No. Everything is being dumbed down, and the quicker this government is out, the better, because they're doing so much damage so quickly.
They really are. It's quite incredible how bad they are. -50 is the approval rating for Starmer today. And later on this afternoon, we'll all have the probably rather amusing aspect of watching Donald Trump and Keir Starmer doing a press conference together. Keir Starmer's apparently trying to control how many questions get asked. Because he doesn't obviously want to be asked too many questions about Peter Epstein. Mandelson, you know, and Jeffrey Epstein. So it's going to be quite interesting to watch, I think.
Well, it's going to be cringeable, isn't it? As we all know, Starmer will be smarming around Trump, but we know how insincere that is. You know, Starmer, I think, is hoping that this Trump visit will deflect some of the mess that he is in. Again, in Parliament this week, there was a special session granted to discuss this very issue about what Starmer knew. He didn't even turn up for it. The fact is that he clearly is is really in a mess. Starmer, in every which way he turns, is a disaster. His own party now are starting to want him out. We've seen, I think, is it Lucy Powell coming out and saying he has to go. Look, he has no control over his own party. The MPs are split. He has no control over clearly what's happening in terms of what he's saying. He's got to deal with Trump today, and we know that he doesn't want. He said he didn't ever want to sit down and have dinner with Donald Trump. Well, I can tell you, Mike, when you go through London, I mean, I'm actually back in Runcorn, but when you go through London this week, seeing the Stars and Stripes flag alongside the Union Jack down the Mall, oh my God, I felt so proud of this country. These state visits are what we do really, really well, and everybody that loves this country, that wants to fly the Union Jack, is proud when we see the pomp and ceremony that we do so well. And oh my God, don't we need it at the moment? We need that lift.
I think so many people talking to me this morning saying how much happier they feel this morning having seen all that, because it's what we do best. So let's celebrate it instead of, doing it down all the time. But
absolutely.
Sarah, have a great weekend. Thank you very much indeed. Sarah Poachin from Reform UK up in Runcorn and Helsby. Natasha says this: what a glorious speech from Trump, saying what the British elites can't bring themselves to say. The British Empire laid much of the foundation for the modern world, and that we ended slavery. I should go to work with a spring in my step. Absolutely right. And Sharon in Staffordshire says, morning, Mike. I can't understand why some British people are bad-mouthing Trump. He's an amazing president. I wish we had him here in our country. He puts his country first, and he's bringing a lot of business to our country. Why would one not want that? And this voice note now from Sean.
Morning, Mike. Sean from Grimsby. I see these protests last night, these lefty idiots who are protesting Donald Trump. And do you know what, Mike? I could smell them from Grimsby. Why do these people always look like they need a good wash? And how come these people always manage to protest during the week? I mean, it's almost as if they haven't got jobs. That's why when we go out to protest at the United Kingdom protest, we have to do it at the weekend because we're too busy during the week contributing and looking after our families.
Yeah, absolutely right. We're going to talk to a special guest in a moment, but just before we do that, let's remind ourselves of what Starmer used to say about Donald Trump.
Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner, but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around. I'm anti-Trump. Yep.
Pretty straightforward, that. I'm anti-Trump, says Keir Starmer. Next time you see him, he'll be standing next to Donald Trump, being all oily and greasy and kind of Uriah Heep-like, rubbing his hands together. I've got a letter from the king. Anyway, listen, Lewis MacLeod, a great man, is here with us. He's a comedian, and he is a man of many voices, it has to be said. Mr. MacLeod, how nice to see you.
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
It's very long time no see. Listen, I know that you haven't been with Mr. Trump that much recently, but he must have been very happy yesterday in his white tie outfit with his lovely wife Melania standing next to him. I was looking at the state banquet, which seemed to be very much in French. I was posing the possibility that after the banquet, he might have been sending out for McDonald's from Windsor, and I was asking to bring it to the main gate, please. What do you reckon?
Yeah. Well, I know the French are not so keen on McDonald's. I know they had that thing about the yellow M on the Champs-Élysées. Yes. Champs-Élysées. So I was telling my wife, who is French, the menu was in French, and it just made her laugh. And it's quite funny. I mean, what is the reason for that? Why was that?
I was talking about this morning. I think it's more to do with a kind of a snobby foodie thing, isn't it? Because it's like if you go to a snobby French restaurant, everything's in French. And you're supposed to know what it all says. I mean, I remember...
Now, careful, Mike. My wife's a chef, and she's a chef de partie at La Serre in Paris once upon a time.
Listen, I know that, so I know I'm on dangerous ground here. But all I can tell you is that when I was on my honeymoon once, I was in Puy-sur-Loire, which is a very nice part of the world. It's got about 5 Michelin-star restaurants in one street, right? And I went into this place, which was the only place I could get a seat in, and I ordered what I thought were medallions of veal in a sort of vinaigrette sauce. And unfortunately what I got was a big earthenware pot with a cow's tongue, completely whole cow's tongue in it, which was wrapped around, wasn't even cooked. And my then wife said...
Can you remember what it was called?
No.
Tonga, hello. Hello, Duvan.
No, if it said tongue in it, I would have ordered it. But it said, and the wife at the time said, "Is that what you wanted?" Of course, of course, that's what I ordered. Yeah, I knew exactly what I was ordering. But it was all in French, and there was nobody spoke a word of English. And I think there's a kind of a tyranny of the French. And as I say, I know I'm on dangerous ground here, but when it comes to food, you go to a sort of expensive French restaurant, and you're supposed to know what it all is.
Well, I have to say that the food that I've had in France, and I've been out there a lot the last 3 years, is absolutely off the scale. The effort they put into it, and they don't overprice the wine.
No.
See this thing about wine?
Yeah.
What's going on?
I know.
I mean, we were in Chinatown last night, and I mean, a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc, like 55 quid. I mean, what's going on?
I know.
So it's fairly priced. And this weird thing they've got over there about tipping the staff. We've had the most beautiful service in restaurants over there, and they don't expect a tip at the end of it. And it's kind of humbling. And you're like, well, no, I want to give you a tip for the service. They've spent so much time with you, explaining it, and the cheese, the wine. I mean, the wine is off the scale. We know that. It's beautiful. But I have a real thing about that tipping. It's bizarre. Why do they not want a tip?
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? I think Trump would be giving out any tips yesterday.
Well, you know, I've said to a lot of them out there, and it's so great to be here, let's be honest. What a beautiful country. Just, could you imagine what he must have been thinking in that private airspace, flying in Marine One, which he brought over, just going over the greatest city on earth, and here he's thinking, here I am, you know, the president, the most powerful man in the world, going to meet the king. I mean, come on, that's quite a thing for a guy who was in real estate to sort of be flying over in that position.
When he left, just before he left America, and he said, you know, the king, who's a friend of mine, you know, I've been friends with him since before he was king.
Great guy.
You know, what a guy. It's great.
What a guy.
I want to know, I love that thing that the king does, right? You know, you see, it's all in the arms. You know, Trump does that thing with the boxes in the arms, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, when they were walking to their table, I wondered what the king was saying, Charles was saying. He was walking along there, King Charles. What's he saying? It's, you know, because he does this thing with the arms. It makes the thing sound, it looks like he's saying something quite serious and profound. What we need are lip readers, so we can get all the inside scoop from the minute they're on camera to, well, you know, I like paintings myself. You know, the curtains are great. You know, you've had some pretty violent bad times here at the old castle, but, you know, I'm looking forward for the duck on orange, the KFC, the battered chicken. You know, we want the bucket. We want the bargain family-sized bucket. I don't drink, so I don't care. Just a Coke will give me it.
I mean, that's it. I mean, the drinks list alone, they had all this incredible wine and champagne, Paul Roger, Extra Cuvée de Reserve, the Ridge Vineyards Montebello. 6 glasses you get, apparently, at this table, and he's drinking Coke.
And I can. Yeah. It's percussion. It's, you know, somebody like David Gilmour would love that. You know, you basically just line up the glasses and you can play Dark Side of the Moon, the whole album, on 6 glasses and a can of Coke. No, that's great. 6 glasses. So this, it's a tasting menu, right? Is that what that is?
That's kind of what it looks like, doesn't it? I mean, afterwards they had vintage port. You'll like this because there's something from the old country. They had Wars 1945 vintage port in recognition of Donald Trump being the 45th president, even though he's the 47th president as well. Hennessy 1912 Grand Champagne Cognac, because that's when the president's late mother was born, right? They put a lot of thought into this. And then finally, Bowmore Queen's Cast 1980 from Isla, a gift to the late Queen Elizabeth in 1980. So a bit of whiskey at the end as well.
The reason that was donated there, and I have to step in there, Michael, is that we did try for a 2-litre plastic bottle, opened for at least a couple of hours, of iron brew. Not quite Fin Boule, they call it, less bubbles, but it still stains your carpet forever if you get it. You know, it's the best of things.
Could have had some Buckfast even.
Buckfast was on the menu as well, but unfortunately the delivery driver got hammered and he didn't make his work, so he's been given the bullet. Not literally, but he's just been fired, sorry. Well, same thing, really.
Now, what's coming up in the world of Donald Trump this afternoon? Because you're going to Chequers. You don't know what that is.
I'm going to meet this...
That was a
this guy they call the Prime Minister. What? You know, when I read about this, and I saw the brief, and Melania Trump will be staying at the, you know, and she's getting shown a doll's house from Queen Mary apparently in 1920s. Imagine that. Why couldn't she go with him? What is this thing? It's like your wife. I thought that actually was a bit of a rum do, really, to be sticking around looking at a doll's house from 1920. All right, it's got history and it's kind of cool, but really, you know, it's like I just thought I could hear Ronnie Ancona as Melania going, "This is our Regis Donald. We need to speak to him." I'm looking at a doll's house. You can and shove it. I may kick it over. Well, Melania, I've got some important business to meet, today. I've got to meet an asshole. And I've got to tell him he's a plunker. He's a numpty. He's a ball-bag. And we got to tell him and get it all sorted out so that he never becomes a ball-bag ever again.
Now, you and I have got some exciting news because there's a thing called the World of Common Sense, which is coming to a theatre near you.
Which is lacking everywhere.
Well, this is the home of common sense, we branded it that. And so the World of Common Sense is going live to the Shepherd's Bush Empire, a very famous former BBC theatre down in Shepherd's Bush. It's an O2 now. Saturday the 15th of November, with myself and Jeremy Kyle. But you're going to join us as a special guest. We're very excited about it.
I'm really honoured to be asked. This is cool.
Yeah.
We've got the date right. It's the 15th of November.
15th of November, yep.
Shepherd's Bush Empire.
Yep.
Tickets still available, I believe.
There's a few left, yeah. There's a few left via Ticketmaster.
Right.
You can download the app or visit ticketmaster.com. But it's going to be a belter, I have to say. Looking forward to it.
Me too. I can't wait. I'll laugh. But if you're looking for some entertainment tonight, get yourself down to Brighton because Dead Ringers live. Hello. I'm doing the old part of the team of Dead Ringers. Brighton
Very
Dome,
nice.
still a few tickets left. Not sure how many, but, we're on tonight, 7:30.
Very nice. Excellent. Are you staying down there?
Yeah, we are actually. We're visiting friends, so we're staying over in Lewis.
Oh, very nice. Very
little
nice.
place called Lewis, home
Very
of the fireworks and the big fireworks on November the 5th.
Yes, very good. Well, listen, Lewis McLeod, staying in Lewis. There's got to be a joke there somewhere.
Hello.
I'm looking forward to seeing you. Maybe we'll get together
too,
before.
mate.
Well, we should probably get together before then and sort out what we're actually going to do.
Aye, we should write it, shouldn't we?
Well, I don't know. I don't do any writing. I mean, I'd leave that to the professionals.
I was a wee bit nervous because I never knew how many questions, left field questions, because this is not rehearsed at all. It never has been.
No.
Mike Graham gave you my training on how to talk on live telly. That's basically it. So thank you.
Well, you're brilliant. Lewis, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Good luck tonight. Dead Ringers down in Brighton. Don't forget the World of Common Sense. If you haven't got a ticket yet, you can still get one. They might be up the back, but they're still very much worth having. Saturday the 15th of November, the Shepherd's Bush Empire at the O2 right here in West London. Don't miss it. This is Talk.
Tells me that number 10 have been trying to keep quite a tight lid on the number of questions that will be asked.
Funny that.
Donald Trump, he's a pretty freewheeling guy, but he is also the guest here. Normally, when he hosts these sort of press conferences on his home turf in the Oval Office or in the East Wing of the White House, he takes a lot of questions and he doesn't have a sort of pre-selected list like Starmer likes to have of he knows what's coming, and he's much more of a free for all.
Yeah.
I suspect they're going to meet somewhere in the middle there.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8:32. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until, of course, 10 o'clock when Julie Hartley-Brewer will be along. Right now, we're going to talk to Ross Clark, columnist at The Sun. He's got a big column in the paper today, of course, which is all about inflation, which apparently is stuck at 3.8%. That's what we were told yesterday, although I said I'm not sure I buy that. And in fact, what Ross Clark is saying is price rises on food inflation are kicking off, and taxes are coming in faster than you could say Jack Robinson, and faster than anything that ever happened in the 1970s, and faster than you can say Jim Callaghan. Ross, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Incoming tax is the headline, and Rachel Reeves, who's hosting a business summit today, we believe, with various American entrepreneurs, is having a terrible time, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. The economic news just gets worse and worse for her. We've had inflation to 3.8%. It was steady in August, but, you know, that's nearly twice the Bank of England's target rate. The food prices, as you mentioned, up 5.1%.
Yeah.
One of the main reasons for that is because of the employers' national insurance contributions, which she jacked up in the last budget, have increased the costs for supermarkets, food producers, and so on. It's hit particularly hard businesses which employ a lot of part-time staff, because you brought down the threshold from national insurance from 9,000 a year to 5,000 a year, and of course that feeds through into costs of producing, costs of selling food, and, you know, it hits us all in the pocket in the end.
Well, this is the thing, and we've been hearing from people this morning, apropos of nothing in particular, but a couple of people started ringing in and telling us that they've just been made redundant, that they've been told that there's no pay rises coming if they've still got a job, and people just saying we don't even know whether we can make any plans for sort of the near future or even the distant future. You know, people saying we're not sure if we can change over our car, we're not sure if we can get a new washing machine, you know, we don't know if we can book a holiday. People are very uncertain, feeling very kind of nervous about the future.
Yeah, well, I mean, job creation was actually quite strong before Labour came to power, and then we had this increase in national insurance, and that has led to a reduction of 140,000 payrolled positions. And you know, Labour came to power, you know, promising to ban 0 hours contract, make employment more secure and so on. It's completely achieved the opposite, because rather than employ people on the payroll, companies are sort of forced to rely more on casual staff, people in freelance positions and so on, because they're not then struck by the national insurance rise.
Another interesting stat that I saw today, and you put it in your piece as well, is according to the Resolution Foundation, average household incomes should now stand at about 51,000, but because of the way that the economy has been handled, they now sit at 31,000. So people are actually £20,000 worse off than they should be.
Yeah, well, this is Labour's favourite think tank, no less, formerly run by Torsten Bell, who's now a Treasury and Pensions Minister. And what they did is they looked at the growth in household incomes between 1995 and 2005, and they said what would have happened if, you know, household incomes had carried on increasing at that trend rate, and they came to the conclusion that average household would now have sort of £51,000 a year in income, whereas in fact we only have 31,000. So I mean, it's a sort of huge gap. You know, we're paying the price of becoming a low growth economy. And I mean, to be fair to Rachel Reeves and Labour, you know, the last 20 years where the Tories were in power for a lot of that time, I mean, neither party has exactly excelled themselves on the economy in the last 2 decades.
No, and they've literally put everything on the never, haven't they? They've just borrowed and borrowed and borrowed, and COVID didn't help. And now we're sort of, the chickens are coming home to roost.
Well, they are, and, you know, no government of either colour has balanced the books since 2001, 2002. We've had 23 years of consecutive deficits. And you remember Gordon Brown came to power in the late 1990s, and he said, you know, we're going to balance the books across the economic cycle. We might borrow during the bad times, but we'll repay debt during the good times. He stuck to that for the first sort of 3 years, and then he completely lost control and was running big deficits even when the economy was growing strongly. And well, if you do that, then when you get inevitable recession, as we did 2008, 2009, then you are in serious trouble. I mean, the Tories started well, the coalition rather started well in trying to get the public finances back on track. But then after about 2015, the Tories then lost their discipline, and then we had COVID. And so we're back to an even worse situation now than we were in 2008, 2009. And frankly, the country is heading for bankruptcy.
Yeah, I mean, that is a terrifying thought, really, isn't it? That was, of course, the no more boom or bust conversation, wasn't it? Ross, great piece anyway. Thank you very much indeed for talking to us. Ross Clark, big column in The Sun today about incoming tax and how much worse it's all going to get before it gets any better at all, which is, I'm afraid, a bit of a depressing message. And let's see what's being said on the Sun Letters page.
Letters from the Sun, the page where you tell Britain what to think. For more, visit thesun.co.uk.
And there's an awful lot of people getting exercised about the one in, one out, or one in, none out, as the Sun says. Mark in West Denton, Tyne and Weir. The one in, one out scheme to tackle illegal immigration is a crackpot idea that was never going to work. Inevitably, the High Court blocked the removal of the first migrant who said he would be destitute if he was sent back to France. So where was the important work previous Home Secretary Yvette Cooper said had been done to derail such legal challenges? Good question. As the Sun pointed out, we cannot resolve this crisis while human rights law has a stranglehold over our borders. Godfrey says this from Norfolk: surely the objections raised by lawyers for asylum seekers facing deportation should have been anticipated by the government. Legal challenges and aircraft leaving without migrants on board just end up costing the taxpayer. And Martin in Croydon, South London: having enjoyed great comedy shows such as Blackadder and Fawlty Towers, I've just watched the funniest thing of all, namely the government's one in, one out deal with France. It's farcical beyond belief. Time to tear up the rule book and deport the lawyers as well. Well, funnily enough, we're going to be talking to a lawyer coming next, the human rights and immigration barrister, Shoaib Khan. We're going to find out what on earth we're going to get from Shabana Mahmood in some way, shape or form. She says the lefty lawyers are to blame and she wants to stop them gaining access to these migrants. But unfortunately, the Home Office has got different ideas. It's coming next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's 8:42 with you all the way through until 10 o'clock, of course. Mike, if Keith Starling looks like a child's toy, maybe he could be in-action man. People have said that in the past. Blake and Wigan, thank you. Mick says, morning, Mike. Just seen all the union flags outside yesterday, wondering why the council didn't take them down due to health and safety as they did the other week. Well, you know, because they can't keep taking them down because it turns out that they keep just getting put up again. So it's a sort of a tit-for-tat war going on, and I think they're sort of losing the will to live on it. Let's get a quick voice note from Mark on the state visit.
Great show again. Interesting to talk about Donald Trump, whatever you think about him. Whatever anyone thinks of the cost of what it costs, 15 million, 20 million, I don't know, quite a lot of money, I imagine. That man with one stroke of the pen can save us billions of pounds in tariffs, in all sorts of business. It's well worth doing. Put a smile on that man's face. We're important to him. We want to be important to him. He's important to us.
Mark, thanks very much indeed. We're going to talk now about the situation regarding the migrants. There's a couple of stories on the front pages this morning. We've got Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, saying that she wants to have a review of modern slavery laws after blaming vexatious last-minute claims for the failure to deport one single migrant to France this week. The same similar story on the front page of the Daily Mail, in which it says, now the Home Secretary blasts lefty lawyers who make last-minute legal challenges. And, of course, she says they make a mockery of the system. And the Home Office, it turns out, are backing a charity called Bail for Immigration Detainees, who actually produced a 12-page document which is given to illegal migrants when they are told they're going to be deported. It helps them to actually get access to lawyers, and it helps them with what to say to immigration officials and to judges about why they can't be sent back to wherever they've come from. Let's speak to Shoaib Khan now, human rights and immigration barrister. Looks like you guys are all in the firing line this morning, Shoaib.
Indeed. Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's anything new. We've obviously been in the firing line, unfortunately, for whatever, at least the past decade, if not longer. And I think that's what it comes down to. You know, either it's the lawyer's fault or the judge's fault. The government, you know, makes, well, like in this case, I mean, obviously we had the Rwanda scheme before this, now we have this. You know, everyone said it wouldn't work. You know, the day it was announced, anyone who knows anything from either side, either, you know, political background, everyone said, you know, it's complete. I mean, even this scheme as we have it, even if it was working, even on its own terms, what do we think it is? One in, one out. So is the issue that, you know, we don't want to cut down the numbers, but we just don't want the people who are coming. We want to choose the people who come here. I just don't understand. So 1,000 people arrive. Out of that, we return 100, and 100 more are sent back to us to replace those. So I'm really not sure, you know, after spending all this time and money and effort and putting these people, these very vulnerable people, through so much suffering, they're coming and going and coming. I'm not really sure what we're even trying to achieve. But obviously in the end, because it was inevitably going to fail, and now it has failed, is the lawyers and the judges' fault. Because, yeah, obviously our politicians don't get anything wrong.
But the politicians, a lot of them who are putting these ideas together, many of them are actually lawyers. You know, I think most of the Home Secretaries we've had in the past sort of 7 or 8 years have all been lawyers. So they're obviously not very good at it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be able to comment on their skills as lawyers. But no, of course, you're right. I mean, I think it sort of started, it's not just about the Home Secretary, but the Attorney General. It sort of started, you know, the slippery slope under the Tories, obviously with Suella Braverman, others who were just, you know, very ideological about things, very stubborn about things. They didn't really seem to care about the law. You know, case after case, decision after decision, judges were ruling that they were acting unlawfully, the government was acting unlawfully, yet the Attorney General just carried on. That's the same advice they kept giving. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's the point. They just have either to have very poor legal advice, or the politicians just don't care about it. They just need to do what they need to do to get the votes, to appease the public, to play to the gallery, and that's all that matters to them.
Well, what should they do if they actually want to stop this from going on? Because I think most people want to stop illegal boat crossings because they're not safe for the people that take them, and they're not good for anybody when they get here at the other end. So if you wanted to stop the boat crossings, what would you actually do as a lawyer?
Yeah, so there's a number of things, but the most important thing is safe legal routes, which basically means for now, we have no legal routes, safe routes for someone to come to the UK as an asylum seeker. We introduced temporary ones, even that, you know, maybe every few decades. Previously, there were 2 almost together. So firstly, the Ukraine scheme, you know, what a humane, fair, reasonable way of bringing people. We sent flights over, checked who it is, brought them over, integrated them. I think it's almost 200,000 Ukrainians who came. You know, the country isn't in disarray or somehow bankrupt because of those people. No one even realized, because we treated them as humans, brought them over, integrated them into society. We did something sort of similar, not as well executed, but with Afghanistan. Again, you know, a handful of planes, 1 or 2, 3 flights went, brought over people. Those people have been integrated.
Well,
So
they
why
haven't
can't we
actually.
just
No,
do
there's
that?
150,000 Afghans here, and we don't actually know who many of them are. We thought we were bringing people in who had helped the British forces there, but actually it turns out because of a data leak that they brought loads of people in who might have turned out being actually members of the Taliban. And that's part of the problem, is if you don't know who they are, then you can't really, with any confidence, say that it's a good thing to bring them in. I mean, look at this guy who's just been sent to prison for raping a woman in Hyde Park. It turns out that not only did he come here illegally in 2023, but the reason he fled Egypt is because he's a convicted Islamic terrorist from the Muslim Brotherhood.
But that's the thing, because we don't have any safe legal routes. Like you're saying, we have no idea.
Well, I don't want a
who
safe
they are.
legal route for Islamic terrorists, though.
No, but that's what I'm saying. That's why these people slip through, and these are the people arriving here, the people with the resources. And I know we keep saying, you know, these young men, why is it all fighting age men? Because when women and children come, then we see, you know, children face down dead on the seashore. That's why it's the men coming, the people with resources, healthy people, fit people, people who can make the journey. And that's why if we
but
were
before the boat journeys were a thing, right? So go back to 2017. When you would say at the same time there were no safe legal routes then, nobody came by boat then because it was it wasn't a thing. Now it is a thing because it's now a business.
Of course.
So I've asked you what you would do, right? Safe legal routes is one thing, but there are some safe legal routes, and that still hasn't stopped people coming illegally, because if you don't qualify to come by a safe legal route, you're going to come illegally. And as long as there's a reason why you should come, because you're going to be put up in a hotel and your life will be improved, you're going to keep coming, aren't you?
No, but that's the thing. I mean, the situation...
So do you not think we have to make it slightly less attractive for people to come here illegally?
I'm not sure what more you can do, to be honest. I know we keep talking about 5-star hotels, 4-star hotels. Yes, these are buildings that, you know, used to be 5-star, 4-star, 3-star hotels. But when these people are living there, they're not. We've seen the food they're being given. It's moldy food. It's not great facilities. I mean, many of these, even...
They're living a lot better than a lot of ordinary people in this country. You're missing the point, though, Shoaib. I've asked you what you would do. You haven't come up with a reason or answer yet, because the bottom line is, for example, one of the reasons why the Eritrean individual can't be sent to Paris is because he says he would be destitute in Paris. Now, why, for example, would he be destitute in Paris when he's not destitute here? Surely the French have the same rules that we have. Surely they would be responsible for housing him, wouldn't they?
They don't, and that's the problem, and that's the thing.
Well, why don't they? If they're in, why don't they have the same rules?
Well, the asylum seekers are coming from France. Solely they're safe there. No, they're not. And we've been saying this for at least decades now. Courts have been ruling this. People have been saying they're abused there. You know, we know about the cat.
Yeah, but why? How do they do that? We're in the same part of Europe, but you know, we're in the ECHR as they are. How do they get away with that?
Well, they get away with that for a number of reasons. Firstly, courts, especially the European court, they are very, very relaxed when it comes to immigration. They're not that strict. They have what's called a very wide margin of appreciation that each government can come up with its own rules about immigration.
So we could be like France if we wanted to, then, in other words.
Sorry?
So we could be like France if we wanted to be.
I mean, I hope not. I hope we're not going to start making.
No, I'm talking legally. I'm not asking for your moral opinion. I'm saying legally we could do what France does then.
Yes, I mean what they are doing.
So what's stopping us doing that?
Yeah, so what's stopping us doing that? Obviously, everything is a balancing act, right? And in that, we have to talk about budgets and constraints. Obviously, we're richer than France. We have far less asylum seekers who come here than France. France is GDP-wise a poorer country than us, and it has about 3-4 times more asylum seekers there.
It's got an awful lot more room. It's got an awful lot more room than we have as well.
Well, the courts are slightly more lenient with them when they look at the hundreds of thousands of people who claim asylum there and the few dozen thousands that claim asylum here. And that's the main difference. That obviously, I know we say, why does every asylum seeker in the world come to the UK? But very, very few do. Most firstly stay in neighbouring countries, Turkey, Pakistan, so many other countries which are absolutely inundated with asylum seekers. Vast majority, even those who come to Europe.
But all those countries that you mentioned, Shoaib, have a much smaller number of approvals of asylum seekers than we have.
Yeah, no, but I'm talking about the people. That's the thing. I mean, so many of these people who are coming, they're not going to be approved. So if what we're talking about is how do we stop people coming here, then what I'm saying is those countries receive many, many more numbers than us. In fact, we receive one of the smallest numbers even within Europe.
Yeah, but we're
Germany,
one of the
Italy,
smallest.
Spain,
We're
France.
one of the smallest countries, the most densely populated countries in Europe. But listen, Sharon, we're not getting anywhere here, so I'm going to cut it off. Human rights and immigration barrister doesn't have any answers. Just wants to keep the system going as it is. Why not? Makes a lot of money, I'm sure. It's 8:52.
Tells me that number 10 have been trying to keep quite a tight lid on the number of questions that will be asked.
Funny that.
Donald Trump, he's a pretty freewheeling guy, but he is also the guest here. Normally, when he hosts these sort of press conferences on his home turf in the Oval Office or in the East Wing of the White House, he takes a lot of questions, and he doesn't have a sort of pre-selected list like Starmer likes to have of he knows what's coming, and he's much more of a free for all.
Yeah.
I suspect they're going to meet somewhere in the middle there.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to very nearly 9 o'clock, and we will be here until 10, of course. This one from Howard in Suffolk. Morning, Mike. I didn't think it was possible, but Ed Davey's a bigger idiot than the Prime Minister. I know, it's hard to believe, isn't it? But it is actually true. If Ed Davey really wanted to get his message across, he could have turned up to the dinner and told Trump how he felt. Instead, he took the easy option, says Mark in Adelaide. Right now, though, let's take some time out, because it's time for 90 minutes in 90 seconds. With
90 minutes in 90 seconds. From The Sun.
Time to say a very good morning to Martin Lipton, Chief Sports Reporter at The Sun. Martin, very good morning to you.
Happy Thursday, Michael.
Indeed. A very happy day for some this morning, but not so much for others. More Champions League reports to have.
Yeah, very much so. Two contrasting fortunes, really, for the English clubs last night. Liverpool once again scoring in injury time. That's the fifth time they scored a late winner. The third time they've done it in stoppage time against Atletico Madrid. A great header from Virgil van Dijk.
I've seen it,
really interesting game. But Chelsea, conversely, crushed, actually. 3-1 doesn't bear justice to the result for Bayern Munich, who are infinitely better. Chelsea looked like a team coming into the Champions League for the first time in a couple of years, which of course is what they are.
Yeah.
But very different. That's 3 wins out of 4 so far for the English teams, and 2 tonight playing. Man City are playing Napoli, and the big one is definitely for Newcastle fans, surely, against Barcelona, which will rekindle memories of that famous night 20-odd years ago when Faustino Asprilla scored a hat-trick in the Champions League for the Toon.
Yeah, that would be amazing. And Harry Kane was Chelsea's nemesis again, it says on the back page of The Sun.
Well, he scored, I think it's 10 goals against Chelsea now, 2 yesterday, penalty, and then the killer third goal. Look, Harry Kane's everyone's nemesis. Look at his record for Spurs, for England, for Bayern Munich. He's just a goal machine. You give him chances, he'll take them. He missed 1 chance yesterday, scored his other 2. That's typical Harry Kane.
Yeah. I mean, I was listening to a conversation on talkSPORT the other day about whether he's going to come back to the Premier League at some point. Do you think he will?
I think he's desperate to break that record of Shearer. He's about 50-odd goals behind. So what's that, 3 seasons?
Yeah.
The obvious place to go and to come back to Spurs, particularly as the people who showed him the exit deal at Spurs are no longer there. Maybe that's where it would. And he's also got that emotional connection with the club. But he also wants to win things, as we know. So do you go to Spurs to win things? History tells us otherwise, sadly, as a Spurs fan.
Spurs fans say it every year, don't they? This is the year. And then, you know, it gets to Christmas and they're like, never mind. Martin, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks
Martin
a lot.
Lipton, Chief Sports Reporter at The Sun. That was 90 minutes in 90 seconds.
90 minutes in 90 seconds. From The Sun.
Let's get a voice note from Matt on the immigration lawyer.
Morning, Mike. Matt in Hove here. Just watching this Shoaib Khan, the human rights and immigration barrister. Is he some sort of plonker, or is he deliberately being an idiot? You pointed it out. Everyone knows what is going on. If there's a legal route and the person is a criminal, like that guy that raped the girl in Hyde Park, he's not going to apply on the legal route. He's going to come here illegally because he can get a hotel and do whatever he needs to do. Get this geezer off the telly. Honestly, what an absolute plonker.
Well, I did eventually. I had to, because we were just literally going round in circles. It was absolutely ridiculous. They had plums on the menu last night. Tim from Bromley says Starmer was the biggest plum there last night. I see what you did there. Coming up in the next hour, Sir Anthony Selden and William Clouston from the SDP. See you after the news.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, coming up to 3 minutes past 9. It's Thursday, the 18th of September, and here we are, the morning after the night before. A massive state banquet last night held in Windsor by King Charles and Camilla, the Queen, and of course the guest of honour, Donald Trump, the 47th and the 45th President of the United States of America. All sorts of goodies were handed out, some fantastic wines and champagne, some whiskey, some cognac, some vintage port, some fantastic food as well. There was a cast of thousands out there. There was a whole day of military spectaculars. There was the Red Arrows. It was a fantastic show of British pageantry and British history and British tradition, really. And so many people this morning waking up with a smile on their face saying, isn't it great that we can do that kind of thing still so very, very well. You know, our political system might be falling down around its backside, but at least our monarchy is actually still able to do what it has always done, which is to push Britain out there on the international stage and make it look like a very attractive place to come and visit, if nothing else. 0344 499 1000. All over the front pages, of course, a lovely picture of the King and Queen pictured with Donald Trump and his wife Melania. The special bond, it says on the front of the Sun. King Charles and Donald Trump last night held the remarkable bond between Britain and the United States. The Times has the same picture. We are kin, according to the King. He says to Donald Trump that Britain and the US are the closest of kin. Praised the special relationship between the two. The Telegraph has got the same picture. A banquet fit for a president. Elsewhere, though, there's still trouble at mill when it comes to the government, particularly over immigration, because the Daily Mail has got Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, blasting lefty lawyers, blaming them for making a mockery of our laws when they try to dodge deportation by telling their clients to claim to be victims of modern slavery. In the Times, it says she wants to do a review of the modern slavery laws after blaming vexatious last-minute claims. It then turns out the Home Office is actually backing an individual charity which tells them how they can stay here if they're being told and threatened with deportation. An organisation called Bail for Immigration Detainees, which has, by the way, got a couple of judges attached to it, some of whom actually make decisions on particular individuals that are going to be deported. They've produced a 12-page booklet which gives advice to migrants who have been told that they're going to be deported. To wit, it says there are all sorts of ways you can get out of it. It recommends that you say you've been trafficked. You can say you've got mental health problems or physical problems. You can say you've got family in the United Kingdom. You can say that you've suffered torture or inhuman treatment, and you will not be deported, as per the case of the Eritrean who was told this week that he couldn't be deported back to France because he might become destitute. We've also got news this morning of an Egyptian who came here and was just sentenced to prison for raping a woman in Hyde Park. He was an illegal migrant living in a hotel in West London. It turns out he was also a member of the Muslim Brotherhood and a convicted terrorist from his home town in Egypt. Unbelievable stuff. This is Morning Glory. Let's get it on. Absolutely incredible stories this morning that we've got for you. Let's talk to Sir Anthony Selden, political historian and biographer. On the news as well, by the way, that there's a big press conference this afternoon with Donald Trump and Sir Keir Starmer. Many people in the Labour government worried about what the questions might be and whether it might be a bit humiliating for Keir Starmer, whose current approval rating has sunk to a new low of -50. Sir Anthony, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
So, I mean, you can see that Keir Starmer thought that perhaps Donald Trump's visit would give him some respite from the slings and arrows that he's been facing in government over the last couple of weeks. The resignation of Angela Rayner, the firing of Peter Mandelson, all the questions around that that are being asked in Parliament, and of course the problems with their new immigration policy, which seems to have shattered before their very eyes.
So, well, obviously yesterday was all about the royal family, and they've come out of it very strongly and shown the continued relevance of the royal family. I mean, to have the leader of the free world saying those things about the British monarchy, they matter. And for all some people's strong dislike in both the United States and in this country of him, you know, he is the democratically elected president. So his views matter, and that was high praise. Today, Mike, yeah, I mean, how will Keir Starmer do? If he is able, let's not prejudge it, if he is able to come away with some real benefits, perhaps not on steel tariffs, but something on tariffs, something further on tech, something further on a trade deal, and maybe some more supportive comments from President Trump about the Russian invasion of Ukraine and how important it is for the free world to stand up against the Russian leader. Those would be, Mike, really helpful. They're not going to solve all his problems, but they will help him. So let's see what happens. Equally, if it doesn't go well, that's going to be another disappointment.
Yes, and I mean, how many more disappointments can he put up with, I suppose? Because before this visit, there were many commentators that I spoke to who more or less were saying he's finished, he's done. There's nothing he can really do to rescue the situation. Do you have a different view to that?
So I think that it's... I don't think it's good for Britain as a country. If we have another Prime Minister, that will be the 8th in just over 15 years. I mean, that's never happened in British history before.
We used to make fun of Italy, didn't we, for getting that many...
Oh, how we made fun of Italy.
I mean, I remember saying this. I went on holiday to Italy a couple of years ago, and I said to my family, I said, when I used to come here as a child, we used to make fun of Italy because they had so many different changes of administration and it's so chaotic, and the country was kind of chaotic. But it seemed a lot calmer than Britain and a lot more better run than Britain now. So, the situation's reversed.
Very rapid changes, whether football managers or Manchester United or running not in the Premiership League, but the League of Premierships, Prime Ministers.
Yes.
It really doesn't help. Discontinuity, not a good look in Britain, not a good look abroad. But I think also, it's hard. People are very angry and frustrated with him. Labour MPs very worried about reform. But will anyone do any better? And there's obviously Andy Burnham, there's Wes Streeting. Will they do any better? Who knows? I mean,
unlikely, I would say.
I disagree with some of those commentators. I think he has a chance. He has a serious chance to prove himself, but he has to start doing the job a lot better and meeting people's needs and expectations.
Yes, I think so. Let's have a look at what Donald Trump said about the special relationship yesterday evening.
The British Empire laid the foundations of law, liberty, free speech, and individual rights virtually everywhere the Union Jack has ever flown, including a place called America. You know that place very well, don't you? His Majesty spoke eloquently about the bond which inspired Sir Winston Churchill, and the bust is in the Oval Office right now, the beautiful bust of Winston Churchill, to coin the phrase special relationship. But seen from American eyes, the word special does not begin to do it justice. We're joined by history and fate, and by love and language, and by transcendent ties of culture, tradition, ancestry.
And so a lot of people this morning saying to me, for the first time in a while, they felt rather proud to be British, which I think tells you everything you need to know about the state of the nation.
Yeah, I mean, the continuing relevance, Mike, of the royal family, derided by a lot of people. They want Britain to get rid of it. They want to make Britain a republic. Would that really help? Would the American president even have come to Britain if it wasn't that offer of a second state visit? Would he have come just to chat to the Prime Minister and get the hard business done? I think that it's very easy to underestimate, to be dismissive of the royal family, but that's 1,000 years of history there, and it shows very clearly the importance of the royal family.
And it's very impressive to watch. I mean, I watched it yesterday afternoon, and it's kind of mesmerising in a way. And the more you think about it, the less it can happen in any other country.
Well, absolutely. And other countries tend to do it around display of grisly weapons and troops. I mean, the troops yesterday didn't look, blowing the instruments, didn't look that menacing, and there were no weapons, large-scale weapons or nuclear weapons on display. So, yeah, I mean, Britain's sense of style, colour, history, continuity, so many of those traditions go back, well, hundreds of years. And I think continuity matters. And in a world that is changing so quickly, not least with digital and AI, that sense of who we are, where we've come from, continuity, what holds us together, what held us together in the past, is significant and important.
Yes, but it's not something, generally speaking, that you would say Keir Starmer actually believes in, because the last time he was speaking about the flag, for example, he was talking about how the flag represents diversity in Great Britain. Well, yesterday what we saw was not diversity in Great Britain, it was tradition in Great Britain, which happens to be slightly different. And I think most British people would say that that's the British flag that they recognise, you know what I mean? So Starmer comes to this kind of slightly modernising, let's pay some reparations for the terrible things the British Empire did world, which is where David Lammy is, which is where an awful lot of the government is as well. Whereas yesterday was all about the complete opposite of that, it seems to me.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday was about hundreds of years of history, and also about the special relationship and the United States was, they were colonies of Britain until 1776. 13 lonely colonies in a pretty cold, windswept parts of the West Coast, East Coast rather, of America. And so America came out of Britain. It was subordinate to Britain for much of the history of the country. And it was a real sense. I think history matters, continuity, traditions matter, and I think countries where they lose them, I think they suffer. And it's much easier to destroy things than it is to honour them and to keep them going.
Yes, and that's why, again, the royal family's existence is a good kind of, shall we say, balancing method against a sort of what I would say is a quite radical government. If they could do what they wanted to do, they'd be doing some even more radical things.
Absolutely. Well, let's wait and see what happens. But you have there, we saw visibly the power yesterday of tradition and continuity in history, and how that is attractive to the most powerful man in the world, and how you could see on those pictures that you were showing there, Mike, how visibly moved he was by it. And I think that's really significant. And it helps British national interests.
I think so. Absolutely right. Sir Anthony, thank you very much indeed. Sir Anthony Selden, political historian and biographer. You could see on Trump's face that this was something that money cannot buy, basically. Let's have a look at what Nigel Farage said yesterday. He was, of course, not invited, famously. He told us on this show yesterday that he wasn't, in fact, invited and he wasn't going to see Donald Trump on this particular visit, but that he had, of course, seen him relatively recently in the USA. But he was on Harry Cole Saves the West last night, and he said this about what Trump knows.
You see the president recently. Does he consider you, have you spoken about the fact that, if a general election was held in the UK tomorrow, you were going to be the Prime Minister? Does he know that?
He knows that. He knows that. In fact, all the American administration are acutely aware of it. And they think they see some similarities in what they've done and what we've done. And you know what? We speak the same language. We share a culture. But of course, our politics is very, very different. Other than one thing. One of the big reasons that Trump got elected is he said he would stop illegal migrants coming into America through the southern border. Looking at my numbers, they're down by over 90%. And I kind of think that dynamic in the American election will play out in the British general election whenever that happens too.
And of course, that show every night, Monday to Thursday, now 10 o'clock here on Talk, and also available on YouTube. Harry Cole Saves the West. We'll be hearing from Harry Cole later on, of course, because he'll be down at Chequers for that press conference with Donald Trump. Mark says this in Sussex: poor old Donald, his visit's about to nosedive meeting Starmer today. Also, did you notice the distasteful expressions on Charlie Boy's face when he was next to Trump? Well, it varies, you know. There are different points at which they seem to be laughing and joking together, and different points where they didn't seem to be really looking at each other. And when the sort of the troops were performing for them and playing in the military bands and stuff, they weren't really looking at each other, which looked as if they weren't really being very happy to be in each other's company. But I think it varies depending on when you're actually watching it. Jules in Bristol says, Mike, hi again. I came to the conclusion last night that the one-in, one-out scheme was a pernicious scheme to get the asylum seekers in, i.e. the vetted ones from France, without being able to kick any of them out. Well, I think that's right. Exactly why did Nigel Farage not get an invite to last night's soiree at Windsor with the other leaders of the political parties, says Angela. Well, I believe it was a list that was drawn up by Keir Starmer and Downing Street. So obviously they don't want to put Farage in there because he's too friendly with Donald Trump. He probably would have been spent the whole night talking to him. That's why. Let's have a voice note from Kelvin.
Morning, Mark. I don't know why you bother have these lawyers on, because they're all there for the migrants anyway. They stick up for the migrants. They want to keep coming, so they won't tell you how to get around this and stop them from coming, because they're making a fortune out of it. And everything you just add on, to me, all I hear is yam, 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 yam. That's all I can hear from him. He's twonk.
Twonk, I think, yes. Well, listen, it's very frustrating when you talk to some lawyers because they just go round and round in circles and they don't actually ever give you an answer to a question. I asked him what he would do. He didn't tell me. I asked him how he would stop them coming. He didn't have an answer because he doesn't really want to stop them coming, does he? Why would he? It's not in his interest. 0344 499 1000. Margaret in Birmingham says, what planet is that bloke on? Government planes in the gallery. Rubbish. They're ignoring the British people and the safe routes. They are picked up. Get lost. Margaret, very well said. Coming next, William Clouston from the SDP.
Birdie tells me that number 10 have been trying to keep quite a tight lid on the number of questions that will be asked.
Funny that.
Donald Trump, you know, he's a pretty freewheeling guy, but he is also the guest here. Normally, when he hosts these sort of press conferences on his home turf in the Oval Office or in the East Wing of the White House, he takes a lot of questions and he doesn't have a sort of pre-selected list like Starmer likes to have of, you know, he knows what's coming, and he's much more of a free for all.
Yeah.
I suspect they're going to meet somewhere in the middle there.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. It's coming up to nearly 9:23. I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through until 10, of course. Julie Hartley-Brewer will be here very shortly, just before 10, to take you through for the next 3 hours. William Clouston joins me now, from the leader of the STP. William, very good morning to you.
Good to be here.
Even since the last time I saw you, which I'm probably pretty sure was only about a week or so ago, the government's fallen even further into the mire. Starmer's reputation and his approval rating now at -50, which is an all-time low even for him. We've got food inflation at an all-time high for the best part of the last 2 years. And, of course, the immigration policy in tatters.
Yeah. No, it's quite...
apart from that, it's all going great.
Apart from that, yeah, it's an astonishing achievement, actually. They do have the whiff of a government that's been in about 10 or 15 years and it's creaking, and the public just can't wait to get rid of them. They've managed that in 12 months, just over 12 months. Quite astonishing.
It is.
But a lot of it's of their own making, of course. You mentioned food prices going up. And the reason that bank rates are unlikely to go down is because they're worried about inflation. And the reason they're worried about inflation is partly on food prices, is because the grocers have put the food prices up because of the NI and the tax on jobs. It's gone straight through, literally straight through from Reeves's measures, straight through onto food prices, so you can't have a base rate cut.
And some of the figures, the Sun have done quite a good sort of examination of it all, because while they say that the average is 5.1% in food inflation, beef prices up 24.9%, butter 18.9%, chocolate 15.4%, coffee 15.4%.
Astonishing.
And people are ringing me today saying terrible, sad stories about being made redundant, losing their jobs, being told there's no money in the autumn for a pay rise, there's no annual pay rise coming in the new year. People having to take financial decisions about whether to get another car, a new one, whether to put their kids in school, whether to, move house, all of the things that would be part of your normal life. Everything's on hold.
So if you look at a household budget, what are the two biggest things that are really squeezing it? It's housing costs and energy costs, both of which are downstream of policy failure by both governments, to be honest. Red and blue haven't really done it. So if you don't invest, if you don't build any houses, prices go up. If you don't construct energy capacity and transmission, and you put all your money into net zero projects that are mad, you're just putting costs on the family.
And we saw that story yesterday about Steve Reed, didn't we? The former Environment Secretary, who's now Secretary of State for Housing, who's apparently objected to 200 or 300 housing productions or projections in his own constituency.
Of course he has, because there's a lot of hypocrisy about it, isn't there? And what Steve Reed is an interesting appointment, actually. His main achievement to date is slogans. Again, it's slogans. You know what the slogan is? Build, baby, build.
I know.
That's what he says.
Which is pathetic.
It's pathetic, and he thinks as if it's magic. He clicks his fingers, and suddenly they're going to get these 1.5.
Well, not in his constituency, obviously.
Oh, not in my yard. Not where I live.
No. How about don't build, baby, build?
It's absolutely classic. It's like the Lib Dems. They have 2 or 3 policies around the country. It's build here. We're not building in my... No, the Greens are the same, actually.
It's been a good week for that, actually, because Ed Miliband, we had it on Plank of the Week this week for charging his council tax for his second home to us.
Really?
They've put council tax up on your second home, so it's doubled, and so he's charged us the money to the taxpayer. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, I can see the logic of council tax being higher for second homes. I can see that.
But then they should pay it.
They should pay it.
I shouldn't be paying it. I don't have a second home. I shouldn't be paying for his.
Exactly.
Should I?
No, it's a shambles. But there aren't many equations in economics, Mike. But the one that I love is savings equals investment equals future prosperity. And unless any of these people, Labour or Tories or any of them, can start investing in the real things, the tangible stuff that you can actually see, like houses, like energy, like transportation. Unless they can do it, it's just going to get worse.
And things that will actually generate growth, which
proper growth, real
there
growth.
Is none. I mean, looking in the stories in the papers today, there's now worries about the pension, private pension schemes where you're able to take a 25% lump sum out, which a lot of people do when they're 55 or 57, pays off a mortgage or pays off some debt. Because you're retiring, you haven't got the same kind of income coming in. They're talking about limiting that to something. Torsten Bell apparently has said something as small as 40,000.
Well, they will. I mean, I mean, it's very common, isn't it? People they build up this nest egg, and they think, okay, I'll buy a nice car. I've always wanted one. And it's freedom. After all, Mike, it is their money.
Yeah.
But on the other hand,
and they've already paid tax on it.
They've already paid tax on it, and it should, it is theirs.
Yeah.
And actually, I've always been slightly sceptical. I think, if I was going to give advice to people, I would say, cash ISAs or shares ISAs, then it's really yours. You can actually decide what you do with it. Pensions, governments of all shades incentivise people to put money into pensions, but then they fetter it and control what that pension money is and what you can do with it. So it's not real money. It's not monopoly money, but it's not real money in the sense that you could do what you like. Yeah.
But I mean, there again, it was only a few months ago, wasn't it, where Rachel Reeves was threatening to change the ISA rules and say, well, you can't put as much as 20,000 in, you can only put 5,000 in.
Yeah, they'll squeeze.
Rachel, apparently that was going to stimulate people to buy shares.
There won't be any, virtually no domain or area in British life will be free of Rachel Reeves squeezing tax out of people, beating money out of your pocket.
Yeah.
What saddens me is that that's happening. Meanwhile, the state is doing all sorts of things and spending money on all sorts of things it should not do. You saw the case yesterday of the police, I think it was in the Thames Valley, visiting a lady who was infirm about a tweet. This is crazy. How can this state...
How are they still doing it as well?
How can you afford it, Mike? How can you actually afford it if you're running a deficit of 140 billion and they're still doing this crazy? Please stop this stuff first before you start squeezing and beating money out of people's pockets.
But so many times we get told they're going to stop. I mean, in the last government, they were supposedly ruling out people recording non-crime hate incidents, and yet the police are still recording them.
No, because there seems to be no control from the politician to the head of the police services and the Thames Valley Police. They seem to be a law unto themselves. Yeah.
And they seem to interpret the law in whichever way they like. I mean, we had Sir Mark Rowley, didn't we, last week or the week before, saying maybe we need to have a change in the law so that the police know what to do. Well, I don't think we need a change in the law. The police just need to be sensible.
They do, but government needs to be sensible and stop spending money on categories that it doesn't. I mean, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And you can't make. This is why I think it strains credulity to say, for any Labour politician to say now, that we don't have enough money, we're going to have to take more money off you, when they continue to put money into stupid things.
Right.
And there was an example from today. A charity received money indirectly from the government to lobby to undermine the one-for-one return scheme, so that you're littered.
It's a Telegraph story.
Yeah, so you're littered. The whole structure is littered with the government will spend money here, do something here which undermines the money spent there, and it just goes round and round in circles.
This is the outfit which we were talking about earlier on. It's called the Immigration Detainees. Bail for Immigration Detainees. BID.
Yeah.
It turns out that not only is the Home Office subsidising it to some extent, but so is Comic Relief. And I said this years ago that there's all these charities that are around the migration business which are actually helping people illegally come to this country and stay in the country.
Of course.
And they've got a 12-page booklet which advises them on how to do it.
Yeah, it's like having a train with a locomotive at one end pulling the whole thing apart. They don't even know which direction they're going in. So please get rid of all this stupidity, cut all this out, it's all froth and not helpful at all, before you ask for more money.
And can you please find out who these people are that we're letting into the country before you grant them leave to remain, or whatever it is. We've got the guy who's been sent off to prison this week, the rapist from Hyde Park, was living in a hotel in Ealing, came here in 2023 illegally, is an Egyptian, said he couldn't go back to Egypt because he'd be tortured. It turns out he's a member of the Muslim Brotherhood, and he's a convicted ISIS terrorist.
Well, that doesn't surprise me at all.
And he's living in Ealing.
And of course he is, in peace, at our expense.
Right, until he commits a crime.
Yeah.
And now we're going to have to pay money to keep him in prison.
You'd hope at some stage the political class do some sort of turn, that they wake up.
Right.
The trouble is...
Because I bet you if he comes out of prison, they won't deport him, because he'll say, well, I can't go back to Egypt because they'll torture me.
Be nasty to me. And that's the root of all that, is that the political class and the cultural elite still think that Britain's job is to solve all these people's problems around the world.
Right.
But I think maybe it just has to get so bad here before they wake up and get in line with what the public think, which is that the British government should put the British people first and look after us.
Yes.
It's not revolutionary.
It's really not.
I'm not asking for very much.
And we should have a border that people have to actually
the basic things.
Work quite hard to come through, as opposed to just walk in.
That we used to know worked.
Yeah. Let me ask you finally about Peter Mandelson, because that story still hasn't gone away. It's rumbling around. There's talk of more emails coming out. There's talk of more sort of revelations. Mandelson's supposed to be angry, wants to take Starmer with him, and all of this stuff. So where does that all go?
Well, it's downstream of terrible judgment yet again from the Prime Minister. He was warned. We know he was warned. You don't get the full detail of the briefings, but he was warned. Anyone that could have thought that he was a good or stable appointment in Washington needs their head examined.
Exactly.
So, but it is worrying for Starmer, because I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect some things will be coming his way.
Well, I think we're going to find out that he knew more than he's been letting on, because he's already being accused of misleading Parliament when he said in Prime Minister's questions that all the vetting was done, because it wasn't, and that he had full confidence in the ambassador, which he couldn't possibly have had.
But I think I make the other point really, Mike, is that if you fall out with Mandelson, he probably wouldn't sleep very well.
No.
So I think, you know, we'll wait.
We wake up with the old horse's head in the bed.
I'm not sure that, but I
metaphorically speaking.
Yes, metaphorically.
Obviously, metaphorical horse's head. There we are. William, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. William Cleaston there from the SDP. Coming next, we're going to be finding out what happened at Windsor last night. Sophie Ellsworth's going to join us, News Corp Australia's Europe correspondent. There's more royal stuff to do today, but also, of course, Donald Trump, I think, has taken off from Windsor and is now heading to Chequers, where he's going to be seeing Keir Starmer. Lucky old him. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory, 9:36. I'm Mike Graham. Morning Mike, says Paul in Chislehurst. I was in Sainsbury's yesterday. I noticed the pack size of Kerrygold butter has dropped from 250 grand to 200 grand, 200 grams, I should say, and the price has actually increased. Absolutely. Reg says, Mike, a friend of mine has just named his newborn son Kia, K-I-A. I asked him why on earth did he do that. He said so that from a young age he will know how to stick up for himself. Yeah, maybe right. Sophie Ellsworth here. Sophie, very good morning to you. News Corp Australia's Europe correspondent. First, though, here's a Ben on the immigration lawyer.
Morning, Mike. Ben from Frimley here. That Shoaib Khan, the human rights and immigration lawyer who just interviewed, clearly does not get it. The whole of Europe, Africa, they are emptying their prisons and they are sending them our way. And it is going to be non-stop for the next 3 or 4 years under this Labour government if no one does something. I dread to think the consequences of this. that interview's made my blood boil, mate. I'm ready to go. My blood pressure's gone. Whew. 1, 2, 3, 4. Have a good day, mate.
Ben, listen, I'm sorry about that. You got to take a big, long, deep breath and just calm down. People are getting driven mad by this stuff, but one great chink of light, I think, in all of it has been the royal visit by Donald Trump. Sophie Ellsworth, you were out in Windsor yesterday. I mean, it's been quite a remarkable transformation. A lot of people this morning saying to me, isn't it great to see the royal family and the pomp and ceremony? This is a thing that we do really well, because at the moment it feels like there's not much else that we do very well.
Absolutely, Mike, and I can say as an Aussie, the Brits do this pomp and pageantry better than anyone.
Yeah.
They turn on a damn good show, and they certainly did that yesterday. There was a real atmosphere in the air, even though this whole event is behind closed doors and there wasn't a huge amount of public out there at Windsor. There was a real buzz in the air and excitement that Donald Trump is here, despite some of the media that you'll read, some arguing whether or not he should be here. I would say this was an extremely successful trip so far for him to be here.
I think so. No question at all. Let's have a quick look at some of the stuff that happened last night. Here's Trump on the special bond.
Bond of kinship and identity between America and the United Kingdom is priceless and eternal. It's irreplaceable and unbreakable, and we are, as a country, as you know, doing unbelievably well. We had a very sick country 1 year ago, and today, I believe we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. In fact, nobody's even questioning it, but we owe so much of that to you and the footing that you gave us when we started. Together, we've done more good for humanity than any two countries in all of history. Together, we must defend the exceptional heritage that makes us who we are, and we must continue to stand for the values and the people of the English-speaking world, and we do indeed stand for that. On behalf of all Americans, I offer a toast to one of the great friendships, to two great countries, and to His Majesty, King Charles III, a very, very special man, and also a very, very special queen. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be with you.
That's, of course, the state banquet last night. It's quite a humble version of Donald Trump, isn't it, that we're seeing here, because he's obviously blown away by all this stuff.
He absolutely is, and as we know, Mike, his late mother was Scottish.
Yeah.
He loves the Brits. He loves the royal family. He's very fond of this country. I did like how he slipped in that the US was in a lot of trouble under the Biden administration. He got that little political jab in there for everyone to hear. Obviously, the King couldn't say anything in regards to that, but they obviously have a nice relationship, a good friendship, and this is to the real advantage of Britain. But today, obviously, all eyes will be on what happens with Starmer, because he will be loving this. The attention has diverted away from all the disasters he's had in recent weeks.
You're absolutely right. One other one I just wanted to play you was his little swipe he took at Prince Harry. I don't know if you caught this one, when he talked about William.
I'll tell you that I just stood in line and shook about 150 hands, and the King knew every single person and every single company, and some of them had bad names like XYZ-Q3, and he knew every one of them, or at least I think he did, because nobody was complaining. I was very impressed with that. But I just want to say that His Majesty has also raised a remarkable son in His Royal Highness Prince of Wales. Really amazing. We've gotten to know you, and I think you're going to have an unbelievable success in the future.
Brilliant. And I just raised one son, obviously.
Ouch.
Yeah,
that was
seriously.
Ouch. It's like when your family says they really like someone, but they leave out the other sibling.
Right.
This was a real, dig at Harry without even mentioning his name.
And Meghan, presumably.
And absolutely, we know that he's said that he doesn't like Meghan, nor Harry. In Harry's defence, though, he is trying to repair this fractured relationship.
Well, he says he is.
He says he is. He appears to be doing it. He's finally seen the light that he has to repair this relationship. But that was a real stab at him. And I think he will be taking note of that, Mike, no doubt.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Well, he'll be watching, presumably, as he always does from afar, whenever something big's happening on this side of the Atlantic with the royals. He could have been there. He should have been there. But, you know, he took a choice not to be. So, I mean, if you're him, you must be thinking, crikey, I wouldn't mind being part of that.
But why would you want him there anyway? He'll sell it to Netflix. He'll do a sit down with Oprah. He'll monetize it.
Of course.
And he's learned that, you know, he can monetize the royal family. He can throw all this mud at them. But now he's starting to realise people have heard it all before, and he needs a new game plan.
And they don't want to hear it anymore.
And they don't want to hear it. We know what he's going to say. So he's trying to repair the relationship. I've always said that him and Meghan won't last the mile.
No.
Who knows? But I mean, I really do think that Prince Harry misses the UK a lot.
I think so.
And he misses the limelight. He was the prince that we all wanted to have a drink with.
Exactly.
And well above Prince William. He was the chap that everyone thought was a bit of a lad and would get on with.
Course.
Now no one wants to know him.
No, because he looks dull and just boring. So let's talk about what happens today. Trump's going to leave Windsor around about 10:30, we understand, right? On his way to Chequers, and he has a meeting with Keir Starmer. There's a business reception, and then there's the big press conferences, which everyone's looking forward to, around about 2:20.
Looking forward to. That's an understatement, isn't it,
I
Mike?
know. People
You'll
are
be
rubbing their
tuning in. Have you got the popcorn ready?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, this is going to be fascinating.
Yeah.
Will Epstein come up in this?
Yeah.
That's the elephant in the room.
Right.
Lord Mandelson, will that come up in this? I mean, the fact
it's got to, hasn't it?
They don't have a US ambassador. They sacked him last week, obviously. I mean,
somebody told me he's still in the ambassadorial residence, though. He hasn't left yet.
Well, he would be seething.
Yeah.
He would be seething, especially with these new deals that Keir Starmer's come out overnight boasting about with the US and all this investment. So today will be interesting. Also, not forgetting the Palestinians' recognition of Palestinian statehood.
Right.
They don't agree on a lot.
Right.
Keir Starmer, and you've said this before, Mike, he sat there in Scotland at Turnberry very quietly, like a mouse, and he just listened to the president talk. And I suspect today he'll be very careful of what he says.
Well, we're hearing that he's trying to control the number of questions that get asked, and also who gets to ask them. You know, but the problem with sitting with Donald Trump at a press conference is that he just riffs, doesn't he? He just starts talking, and he'll kind of just go off on one and ramble. And then suddenly you're there for 2 hours and you didn't even know it was going to be more than 20 minutes. So I think the idea of Starmer trying to control Trump is quite funny.
That's not going to happen. That's zero chance. Wonder if they'll bring up the Sadiq Khan.
Yeah.
Because he came out swinging at Trump this week, which I thought was pretty ill-advised.
Yeah.
And we know that he's already described him, Trump's already had a go at him when he was in Scotland.
Yeah, he was a nasty person, didn't he?
Nasty person. And look, that's not going to help relations. So there's a lot to see what comes of today. I imagine Trump will control the whole thing. He'll control the narrative. But I think Starmer needs to be very, very careful of Lord Mandelson.
Yeah.
He will be furious with how he has been treated, as we've read in the papers. So he's going to have to watch this carefully.
Right. Now, I don't know if you saw, we've got that picture of the whole sort of group of them. There's the King and the Queen, Prince and Princess of Wales, Starmer and his wife. Starmer looks really awkward. I don't know if you've seen the picture, but he's standing with his arms kind of down by his sides. There it is up there. And James Cleverly actually tweeted, you know, the former cabinet minister from the Tory party, did Keir Starmer borrow that suit from someone a lot bigger, crumpled at the ankles, too long in the cuff, loose enough to get another bloke in there with him? And someone please tell him about the buttons, because he's got both buttons done up, and you know, you never do that. You don't do up both buttons of a jacket. And it just looks all wrong. It looks like it's not his suit, and famously, of course, his suits are normally provided by Lord Ali. You know, so I don't know whether this is one that he had to get off the peg.
He might have purchased it from,
you know, had to get it from the
something.
nearest, you know, Primark or something. But it's not a good-looking suit, and he just looks really awkward. He's the only one in the whole line that looks like he doesn't want to be there.
Well, look, he's had a shocking 2 weeks, Mark. We cannot disagree on that, surely. He's had a horror time. He's lost his deputy prime minister. He's sacked the ambassador to the US. He's had a string of bad headlines. And so he will really be hoping that today he can come out of this unscathed. He has managed the relationship with Trump very well. They do appear to get on quite well, even though they don't agree on
But I wonder
things.
if that's more because Trump kind of knows he can just push him around and get him to do whatever he wants.
Absolutely, he can.
You know,
it's
so
like a big
his
brother with a little brother.
Yeah,
He
he's
can
like his
push
little
around.
sort of whipping dog, you know. He just goes jump and he jumps, you know, and he tells him to just be quiet. He sits, you know, roll over. He doesn't really, you know, he doesn't control the room, as you say, when Trump's there, does he?
No, he doesn't. And I think it's probably best he doesn't, because if he tries to override Trump, we all know that will end in tears, Mark.
Yeah, it will. There's a new video apparently that he's put out. Let's have a look at that.
the closest relationship in the world between the UK and the US, which is really important for our security, defence and intelligence. We've got record investment into this country, measured in over £100 billion, more than the entire amount of investment during the whole course of last year coming in on this one occasion. That translates beyond numbers into really good, well-paid jobs across the whole of the country. So wherever you live in the United Kingdom, this investment from this visit is really good news for you, your family, your community, where you live, and for our country.
I don't think anyone's going to buy that, do you? Who's he talking to?
No, I just think his messaging is not cutting through. Look, the UK, as you know well, Mike, better than most, there's so many issues here.
Yeah.
The migration issue, which we know Trump's called out, is one of the biggest problems this government cannot get a handle on. We know the cost of living here is exorbitant.
Yeah.
The crime, I'm shocked moving here to London, the crime here is just unbelievable. You're just constantly thinking, if someone comes up to you, they're going to rob me, they're going to stab me.
Right.
It's not good for the UK at the moment.
Right.
And Starmer's got a lot of problems. Sir Keir Starmer has a lot of problems, but he seems to put out these funny little videos and tweets.
Yeah.
And I just think,
like he's
what's
living
his
in a
strategy?
different world,
He's
bubble.
obviously in a bubble because he's not experiencing what people out there are experiencing.
Exactly, and to say every single person in every community in every part of Britain is going to benefit from these jobs, well, there's only, I think there's something like 1,700 of them. Well, what is it, one in every one in every town? Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, never mind. Listen, Sophie, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Sophie Ellsworth, News Corp Australia's Europe correspondent. Are you travelling off to Chequers? Are you going to go and do that one as well?
I won't be at Chequers, but I'll be tuning in this afternoon with great interest, Mike.
Great. Well, you can watch it all here on Talk. Let's get a quick voice note from Dan on the immigration lawyer.
Morning, Mike. It's Dan from Kent. The human rights lawyer you had on, I just want to remind him that it's, we've got a problem with migration on small boats. But before that, we had a problem with trucks. The gangs used to control the car parks in France. People used to pay the gangs money to get on the trucks. And now they've moved their business model to dinghies, obviously making more money. The whole thing is a racket, including human rights lawyers that are defending these claims, the hotel owners. The whole thing is just one giant money-making scheme.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's a racket, and everybody's in on it, including Serco, by the way, and some of those other companies that are making all the money out of the hotels. We'll be back, though, in just a couple of minutes with Rakib Hassan. He's going to talk to us about why Sadiq Khan's got such a problem with Donald Trump.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Morning Glory. I'm Mike Graham. It's 9:53. We're here for about another 6 or so minutes. Julie Hartley-Greer taking over, taking you all the way through till 1 o'clock, of course. Chris says this in Cheshire. Mike, I've just got back from Cyprus and spoke to a few people who are also there on holiday. 3 of them are in construction and told me they're moving to Cyprus due to Reeve's tax grab on them. How is the Labour Party going to build homes if all of our construction workers are leaving the country? It's a very good point. Well, they haven't got enough construction workers to build all the homes anyway. And they haven't got any money to build all the homes, and even the house builders are saying they haven't got the materials to build all the homes. So it ain't happening anytime soon. Rakib Hassan is here, Senior Fellow at the Policy Exchange. Before that, let's have a look at Susan Hall, who is, of course, the former leader of the Conservative group down at the London Assembly. Here she is asking questions of the Deputy Mayor for Policing, Kaya Koma-Schwartz, over protesters who attacked the police.
Some of this is alarming, and I've been reading about some of the actions of protesters from a Metropolitan Police commander, and she noted, in carrying out their duties today, our officers have been punched, kicked, spat on, and had objects thrown at them by protesters. Would you agree, as I do, about the abhorrent treatment of police officers at protests?
I completely agree with you, Chair. It's unacceptable. You will have seen in the media today appeals for information on some of the people that the police are investigating. So there'll be continued investigation as to some of the actions that happened there.
Absolutely. But just to clarify, if I may, the words that I've just read to you were in relation to the protests on the 7th of September 2025, with the 893 arrests of Palestinian Action supporters, where 17 people were arrested, for assaults on police officers. Where is everybody's condemnation of the actions of the protesters then?
Well, you might well ask. The probably answer came there none, you'd have to say. Rakib Hassan is here. Rakib, very good morning to you. Welcome.
Morning, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, very well indeed. That's a pretty good example of two-tier policing right there, isn't it? It's not just two-tier policing, but it's two-tier kind of reaction from that woman, Kaya Koma-Schwartz.
Well, I think that I've talked about two-tier governance for some time, and what's included in that is the way various politicians, how they react to different protests, how they react to various marches. And I think that you'll have a case where they might pinpoint forms of violence at one protest, but when it comes to not just protests, but if you look at events like Notting Hill Carnival, for example, I think that those of a more sort of progressive liberal disposition, they're very reluctant to engage with the crime figures that come through when it comes to Notting Hill Carnival, and I think that's a serious problem.
It really is. And Sadiq Khan having another go at Donald Trump yesterday in The Guardian, talking about how divisive he is. I mean, a lot of people say, including you, I suspect, he's more divisive than anyone.
No, absolutely. I think that if Sadiq Khan wants to actually see a politician who is responsible for political polarisation and is not remotely interested in social cohesion, it's best that he looks in the mirror. I think that he said that Donald Trump, more than anyone's been responsible for fanning the flames of far-right extremism across the world. If you actually look at Trump, how he won the 2024 presidential election, he managed to build a broad-based coalition which was ethnically and religiously diverse, Mike.
Well, because you can't win an election without doing that, really, can you?
No, absolutely. So he won, I believe he won 46% of Latino voters, 2 in 5 voters of Asian heritage. And hear this, Mike, one of the strongest predictors for voting for Donald Trump in the last presidential election was if you were Native American.
Yeah, I know. It's incredible, isn't it? People just don't get it. They don't understand it. Rakib, we've got to cut it short there. Thank you very much indeed. Rakib Hassan there, Senior Fellow at Policy Exchange. Here's one from Mark. He says, my daughter-in-law is an American and has been here for a year and is a fully qualified doctor. She cannot get a job and has to pay fortunes for useless courses on anything but medical issues. They, as a family, are considering moving to America just to get her work. It's bonkers, isn't it? Julie Hartley-Brewis here, very good morning.
I mean, it's bonkers, isn't it? It basically sums up every single story.
It really
does.
does.
I mean, whether it's these claims of like all these, all these investment, these billions of investment we're going to get because of the Trump visit, rubbish. They were going to do that anyway.
Right.
It's bonkers that we can't deport anyone from this country, and that the Home Office advises companies to, businesses and welfare to actually use these charities.
Yeah.
It's mad that we're going to recognise a Palestinian state that doesn't actually exist as a
isn't it
reward to
funny
Hamas. Everything is bonkers.
Right, but he's going to wait until Donald Trump goes away because he doesn't want to get slapped.
Lily-livered, yellow-bellied. Oh,
he's awful. He's just awful.
He's just awful. And the shame it brings on our country. Hamas celebrate this.
Yeah.
If you do something that a terrorist group celebrate, by the way, that terrorist group who would quite happily do exactly the same to Keir Starmer and his family as they did to Israelis.
Of course they would. And also,
I don't understand
the cherry on the cake. What about this guy who's been jailed for rape in Hyde Park? Turns out he's a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. The reason he couldn't go back to Egypt, he's been sentenced to prison there for being a bomb maker and being a terrorist.
Yeah.